This is the regular board meeting of June 8, 2023. It is now 4:10 PM. We will begin roll call.
President Chavez,
Present.
Vice President Cortese,
Here.
Clerk Doe is on his way. Member Herrera,
Here.
Member Lay.
Here. Any members of the public? Okay, the board will now recess to closed session. Great. All right. All right, so let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. All right, section 2, 3, going on to section 4. All right. Welcome to the regular board meeting of June 8, 2023. Members of the public, please submit your public comments as follows. Public comments may be made in person in the boardroom by filling out a public speaker request form located at the entrance of the meeting room. So, back there. You may raise your virtual hand in Zoom to request to speak and offer comment in real time. You may also submit your public comment online by accessing the link to the agenda located on the district's homepage at www.esuhsd.org. Please reference the agenda item number in your written comment and limit your written comments to no more than 1,000 characters in length. Public comments submitted online may be read into the record. Please note, all meetings are recorded. All regular and special meetings of the Board of Trustees and board study sessions are streamed live on meeting nights and are also available for viewing the day after the meeting by accessing the district's YouTube channel listed on the district's webpage at www.esuhsd.org under the quick link section. The board is not able to respond to items that are not on the agenda or any personnel issues. Your comment will be read into the record and will be directed to the superintendent and/or the appropriate staff member for response. Interpretation of this meeting in Spanish and Vietnamese can be heard by accessing the link and following the instructions shown on the agenda or the district's website. So now let's go to item 5.01. So this is the adoption of the agenda. Superintendent and board may request items be removed from the agenda for consideration and or carried to future board meetings. Is there anything that superintendent or board member would like to request?
There's no request for removal from administration.
Great. Colleagues? Nope. Okay. Section 6, board special recognitions. Santa Teresa High School Mesa San Jose State Championship winners, National Engineering Design Competition, project name Coaster. Is that right? Coaster? Yeah, I like
right.
that.
Yeah, so we've got some amazing people in this room that are also, you can see the work that they did throughout the course of the competition and brought home the Crystal Trophy. And what was that trophy for? This is the Santa Teresa High School Mesa San Jose State University State Championship winners in the National Engineering Design Competition. So let's give them some love for that. My goodness. So if we could have Susan Arias from San Jose State come up, Chani Cornejo that worked with these wonderful students in this program. Their teacher, Carol Ng, is in another place in the world tonight, but so couldn't join us. But if you two could come up, as we also ask Michelle Nahorai, Ria Rajivan, Ritika Samant, and Shaylin Tran, our 4 winners, to come on up. All right, could you give us like a brief kind of just what this was, what you did, and a little bit about what Coaster is? And if you could step up to the microphone there, press the button. When it turns green, you're good to go. This is kind of the no, you go first moment. Okay. All right.
Hi, so my name is Ritika Samant and I'm one of the members of this coaster team. Basically, our project was a portable coaster that we designed to basically combat the ongoing drugging issue, which is kind of like based off of like date rape drugs. And so we designed a portable coaster with like a sensor that we attach to, which is like going to detect motion around the rim of your cup. Basically, it'll send you alerts and notifications whenever there is a drug present or someone is trying to like kind of slip in a date rape drug into your drink. And if you guys want to.
And so sorry. The biggest thing about our product was that it was different from other date rape drug detectors. For example, one of the things that exists are like the drug detecting strips, and there's also nightcap, which you use to cover up your cup. But the thing about our app is that it's an app, first of all, and it's like your own personal security system. So not only does it stay with your drink at all times, but you get to know the status of your drink at all times, which is not something that most of the drug detecting devices do now.
So as young women like us, sexual assault is just like a big sphere, just like in general in our lives. So we just wanted to make a big change and to also just spread awareness about this big problem.
Yeah, so we've been working really hard on this project, and it started, I think, like a couple months ago, and we first won regionals. And well, first we did like our little, like from our school, like different districts, and then we did regionals, and then we just went to state in San Diego. Now we get to go to nationals, and we just feel really proud about this project and where it's gone so far. And yeah, I think we're really proud of our project and where it's taken us.
No, and we're proud of you too. And you don't have to take over the world to make it a better place, but go ahead and do both of those.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Should we go down there and
Give out some certificates and take some photos, yeah?
It was all a group effort.
All right, well, feel free to line up here, open those certificates, and we'll take some. Oh, don't be shy. Come on up. Yeah, it's all good.
Well, again, congratulations. So proud of you is an understatement. I know y'all are going to continue blowing folks away. Nationals is going to go like a breeze. Cannot wait to hear how it goes. Please make sure to let us know how it goes. Send us pictures, report back. And if there's anything that we can do to support you all as you continue in this journey of your innovations, right? This is one of them, but I imagine there will be many more in the future. Please count us in as people that will continue to support you in this journey ahead. So congratulations again. All right.
I just want to congratulate our students, and I also want to thank their coaches, their teachers, and their principals and their parents for making this possible. So thank you very much, and continue to change the world. Thanks.
Well, we're so proud of our student. And I couldn't say more enough that echo my board colleagues that keep up a good job, okay? All right, congratulations again.
Okay. Now, let's go on to section 7, our one and only Lee Henny.
Yeah, so short update this time. We're just working on like closing out the year and then creating a plan for the next year so that we can just continue smoothly, even with the like 1 month break. And that's kind of it. Nothing really new.
Thank you, Lee. Okay, section 8, special order of business, operational items. Okay, so this is superintendent or board members may request that items be considered, discussed, and are acted out of order. Is there anything that we'd like to move around?
Yes, could we move 1502 to follow this item right after 8.0?
1502. Okay. Anything else? Nope. Okay, then let's go to 1502. 1502, let's see. This is discussion, consideration regarding selection, appointment of members of the CPA committee, bless you, measures GEI, technology IZ and N. You may come forward, yeah.
Tough act to follow. Man, okay. Good evening, board members. My name is Christopher Roberts. I'm currently the vice chair for the CBOC, or the Community Bond Oversight Committee of Eastside Union High School District. Under the current bylaws of the CBOC, regular members are allowed to serve 3 consecutive 2-year terms to allow for the history and consistency. The terms are staggered to avoid all members terming out at the same time. As explained in the terms of Proposition 39, the CBOC is required to have members who meet specific criteria in order to ensure a well-rounded CBOC to represent its community. The CBOC, I represent a committee from the CBOC that was tasked with the onboarding and interviewing of new potential members. The committee has observed that all individuals presented for this approval this evening are not employees, officials, vendors, contractors, or consultants of the Eastside Union High School District. It is recommended to the Board of Trustees, excuse me, it is recommended to the Board of Trustees appoint the following individuals to serve on the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee for measure G, E, I, Technology I, Z, and N for the term of appointment July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2025. Cody Harkins, Debbie Hermange, Rajani Nair, Carol Peffley, and Beryl Schimmel. In observance of your time, a copy of this has already been submitted for your review for voting on when necessary. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have any comments? Holly?
Just, my colleague Brian Doe and I were privileged to sit in on those interviews, and
Yeah, go ahead.
I just feel we're very fortunate to have so many qualified and committed individuals step up to serve on this committee. So I'm very supportive of these nominations.
Great. And yeah, really excited and grateful to have people ready to do this work. And thank you also for your leadership in doing this, because this takes a lot of time and commitment. So really appreciate that as well. And I believe this is an action. So looking for a motion. Do we have a
Move to
motion?
approve.
Second.
Moved by Cortese, seconded by Lay. Lee, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The vote passes unanimously. Yeah, Bryce. Okay, so that's 1502. All right, so now we are going to go to section 9, public hearings. All right. So We will now hold a public hearing, which is scheduled at approximately 6:15, 6:30, regarding the proposed annual update of the Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP. Okay, so I will be calling speakers at this time.
Is it possible for us, it is possible for us to carry 9.02 as
Oh,
part
sorry,
of the
yes.
public hearing, so.
Yes. Before we go into the actual speaking, let's have our presentation happen, and then we could do public comment during this hearing. So Ms. Marquez, would you be able to do the presentation during the public hearing, please? Wonderful, thank you. So again, as soon as Ms. Marquez is done with her presentation, then we will do public comments. Thank you for that.
Teresa Marquez, Associate Superintendent of Educational Services. Good evening, Madam President, Trustee, Superintendent, and our community. Today, I bring to you as part of the Local Control Accountability Plan process for an official public hearing, the proposed plan for the 2023-24 school year. So I begin with an overview of the presentation. The goal of the presentation is to present to trustees as well as their community, the Local Control Accountability Plan for the 2023-24 school year. As part of that, we seek to be able to answer the following questions. One, how will the LCAP connect to our overarching vision and approach to responding as a system? Two, how will we shift our view of the LCAP from one of individualized goals and actions to an integrated approach? How will we monitor the progress and overall levels of student achievement? How will we embed reflection as a means to examine practices and actions contributing to student outcomes? How will we measure the capacity and fidelity of implementation of the goals and actions within the LCAP? And then finally, what are some key next steps as we move forward towards the implementation of the 23-24 LCAP pending approval? So just to ground us in terms of what the process entails, as part of the California Department of Education, the requirement of the LCAP cycle is that we must include a presentation of the goals, the actions, and expenditures being proposed for the school year. In addition, there is to be a submission of a variety of fiscal documents, which are included as attachments to this particular item. In particular, as part of the LCAP, we are allocated a specific amount to be able to provide supplemental services for increased and improved services for 3 target populations. And so the focus of the plan is on our 3 target populations, which is our English learners, our foster youth, and our low-income students. These 3 make up what we call our unduplicated count. The current count for this school year is 10,702 students. Those 10,702 students, which are the English learners, foster youth, and low-income students, it's what generates our allocation as part of the LCAP, which for the 23-24 school year is projected to be $25,861,099. And so part of the work of the LCAP is to ensure that it is in alignment and connected to where we're trying to head as a school district. And for us, it's to keep our promise of college and careers for all of our students. And the way we define college and career readiness for all our students is through a set of skills that we call our graduate profile. Once our students have completed their time with us and have earned their diploma, we want to ensure that they're going to find success beyond us. And success for them will come if they have the skills listed within our graduate profile, which include being effective communicators, critical thinkers, collaborators, creators, productive members of their community, and that they have a plan. That as part of the work that we've engaged with them, that they are leaving us with a plan so that they have the options to be able to select what it is specifically that they're hoping to do after they leave us with a diploma. We recognize as a district that in order for us to meet our promise of college and career readiness for all our students, we need to do it through equitable communities. And for us, equitable communities are those where all our students are welcomed as they are, where the strengths and areas of growth for each of our students is not only known, but it's supported, where the adults in the system are positively responding to the various needs that our students bring with them, whether they be academic, social, emotional, behavior, or overall wellness needs, so that they can then be able to engage in their instructional setting with tasks, assignments, projects that are going to provide the opportunity for them to attain those skills listed in our graduate profile so that they can be full participants, not only in their local community, but in the global community outside of us. The LCAP then provides for us an opportunity to respond as a system where we're able to address the needs of the whole child through policy, access, and practice. And so for us, it's about that integrated approach that we take as part of this plan to be able to meet the needs of our students through a system as opposed to fragmented actions and as opposed to just one school and not the other. Really taking it and looking at it through a systems lens where we're able to provide what it is our students need and addressing their whole child needs through policy, making sure that there's policies in place for us to be able to do the work that we need to do, removing any barriers that are in the way of opportunities for our students, and ensuring that we have practices in place that are going to address the whole child and eliminate any kind of inequities that may exist. So for our community, I know the board, you're very familiar with this, but for our community, just a reminder of what the LCAP is. So the LCAP, which is our local control accountability plan, is actually a plan that every single district in the state of California must put together and follow the process as part of the California Department of Education. It is a 3-year plan, and so it comes in a 3-year cycle. This current school year, 22-23, marks year 2. 23-24 will mark year 3 of this particular cycle. Because it is a plan that is expected to be developed as part of the process that has been put forth by the California Department of Education, there is some expectations and some requirements. And one of those requirements is that we must ensure that a plan addresses the 8 state priorities, which include basic services, making sure that our facilities are in good repair, making sure that our students have access to standards aligned materials, ensuring that we are implementing the state standards within our academic content courses. So a Math 1, the content is the state standards for Math 1. 3, that there's parental involvement, that we are meaningfully engaging our parents in ways that they're able to be part of the decision-making process. Pupil achievement, that we're looking at evidence of college and career readiness, that we're looking at the proficiency of our English language learners, that we're engaging our students. What do our attendance rates look like? What are our graduation rates? That we're ensuring that we're providing a positive and safe school climate by reducing suspension rates, reducing expulsion rates, and making sure that our students feel a safe sense of safety and connectedness. That our students are being provided with a variety of courses so that they can find what interests them, and that they're actually performing at high levels within those courses. And so those are the 8 state priorities that have to be addressed within the LCAP. So the California Department of Education sees the LCAP process as a way for us to be able to, 1, do some comprehensive strategic planning so that we're actually doing it beyond just the compliance aspect, that we're actually looking at this as a roadmap for the work that we want to do as a district, that we're meaningfully engaging our educational partners, that we're meeting with our parents, our students and staff and getting their input as part of the LCAP process. And that we are making sure that we are following the requirements as set forth by the California Department of Education, which includes ensuring that we are providing and increasing services for our foster youth, English learners, and low-income students. That the goals and the actions that are presented are in alignment with those 8 priority areas that I just shared with you. And that there's this reflective aspect of it that allows us to be able to engage with the actions and the metrics and be able to do a review as to the progress of each of our goals and each of our actions. And really specifically, this is the question that the California Department of Education wants us to answer as part of the development of the LCAP process. And it reads as follows: given present performance across the state priorities and on indicators in the dashboard, how is the district using its budgetary resources to respond to the student and community needs and address any gaps in performance, including by meeting its obligation to increase or improve services for foster youth, English learners, and low-income students, right? So again, looking at data, looking at the requirements as set forth by the Department of Education, and being able to then respond to that question through the course of the plan. So in developing this particular LCAP, this is the process that was followed. And in particular, I want to highlight these points here. We adhere to the requirements that were set forth by the California Department of Education. We provided a variety of forums for our educational partners, our stakeholder groups, so that they can provide input and feedback. We did a thorough review of our student outcome data. We reviewed many of our action items for implementation level or fidelity to implementation. We reviewed our funding allocations to ensure alignment with our resources. And we reviewed research and evidence-based strategies and practices to ensure that not only were we adhering to the 8 state priorities, but that what we're putting in place is also going to be research-based so that we know that we're going to be able to move towards improved student outcomes. You've seen this before, but just as a reminder, because this is a required aspect of the LCAP plan, and that is to put in place forums where our various educational partners are able to engage, review data, review the actions, review the expenditures, and then be able to provide input and feedback. And you could see here the various types of forums that were held and the various dates that were held. There was over 30 sessions that were held as part of this process. Within that process, the educational partners had an opportunity to look at the goal with the action items and the funding. They had an opportunity to review metrics that were, yes, those summative metrics that are included as part of the California dashboard, which is essentially our district's report card. They were able to look at more actionable metrics, which included our 6-week period or early warning system data. And then they were able to do reflection and input. And the question that was posed to them was, as we review the current LCAP goals, action items and metrics, what is working, where is there room for improvement, and what, if anything, is missing? And as a result of that, this is some of the key input that was collected. There was a call for more academic support within students' classrooms. There was a call for greater connections between students and staff, seeking improved opportunities for parent involvement, seeking a review of grading practices, looking to improve mental health supports, and just more staffing to support students across the board in a number of different areas. The input that was collected via the survey, you can see that we had over 1,000, over 1,500 actual student responses, 1,666. We had close to 1,000 parent responses and 463 staff responses. This is about 1,000 more responses that were received last year. And you can see here what I've highlighted from 2 of the kind of select your choice or drop-down menu questions. One of the questions was, what form of parental engagement should the Eastside Union High School District work to increase and improve? And you could see that across the board for all 3 respondents, it was parent communication with teachers and counselors. When asked in terms of a continuum of not working well to working extremely well, you could see what was listed across for each of the groups. And across the board for the 3 responding groups, social, emotional, and mental health support was something that was listed as working well across the district. In terms of needing improvement, you could see that for students and our staff, they'd like to see parent communication and engagement improved. And they'd like to see additional professional development for building positive relationships with students and their families. And so our students were in alignment with our staff in terms of those responses. Our parents would, as well as our parents, and our parents also added professional development for staff on providing interventions for academic support, which is in alignment with the free responses that were given as part of the actual forums, which was that added academic support. And in terms of the free response questions, because the survey did contain free response opportunities, you could see these are just some of the most common responses that were listed for our students. They included a need to look at academic interventions, including tutoring and opportunities for grade review and quantity of homework by class. There was a lot of comments by the students around the amount of homework that is given in certain classes, as well as the varying grading practices and skills that are provided in each of their classes. In terms of the parent, one of the common responses was timely communication with teachers before the student is failing. So wanting to know before they actually get the report card that is mailed home, or before they even look at Canvas or their portal, they'd like to know sooner if their student is failing so that they can intervene. In terms of staff responses, you could see their responses there, including more interventions and support for 9th and 10th graders, increased emphasis on career aspect of education, and then, of course, more staffing in various areas, including academic counseling, mental health and wellness, as well as safe and positive school climate. So when looking at the process and following the process, which included looking at data, sorting through the various responses from our educational partners, and research expertise that is afforded as your Associate Superintendent of Educational Services, and through the leadership of your superintendent who's been selected to lead the district and carry out the vision. This is the plan that I bring forth as a proposed plan for this initial public hearing. I will say that it continues to be grounded in building equitable communities through our framework of multi-tiered systems of support, which really hones in on ensuring that we have a tier 1 that is high quality instruction and supports for all our students. That then allows us, when that is implemented to fidelity, it allows us to then really provide those tier 2 and tier 3 services to the students who really need it based on the data. So the goals should be familiar. We are carrying them over from the previous year. Goal 1 is around college and career readiness. We want to ensure that we provide high quality instruction, learning opportunities, as well as both academic and social emotional support through that framework of MTSS, so that we can keep our promise of college and career readiness for all our students. Goal 2 is specific to our graduation rate. And for that, we seek to ensure that we have the physical, emotional, and social academic support to ensure that our students are making appropriate yearly progress towards that high school diploma. Because our English language learners are one of our key target populations, we have a goal that is specific to their achievement. Goal 4 speaks to establishing and sustaining healthy school cultures. So how we positively respond as part of our equitable communities to the various needs, including student behaviors. Goal 5 is around attendance and chronic absenteeism. We want to make sure that our students are coming to school, that they're engaging, that their families feel that they're connected and can succeed, and that their child feels a sense of belonging and connectedness, so that then they could meet the other goals that have been mentioned. And then finally, goal 6 is actually a required goal that the California Department of Education is requiring us as a district to include as part of our LCAP, because of the fact that these 2 target populations of our homeless youth and our foster youth have not made the designated progress as is expected. And so because they're among our lowest performing groups, we are now required to include a goal that specifically looks at how we engage and support our homeless youth as well as our foster youth. So goal 1, what you see here is, and this is included in greater detail in the plan that is also attached as one of the documents for this particular item. For this particular goal, we have a variety of actions that seek to ensure that we keep our promise of college and career readiness. One of the biggest changes here is the addition of actions 15 and action 16. Action 15 is the coordination of our entire counseling team across the district. And so this position was actually added last year, but we're shifting it as part of this goal and explicitly calling it out as an action item to meet our goal of college and career readiness. And this essentially is a 1.0 teacher on special assignment subject area coordinator for counseling. And so this particular position supports all the counselors across the district and ensures that we're developing common assurances for how we provide the academic and social emotional counseling for our students. Action 16, I explicitly went ahead and added this action so that we can call out the field trips that we have been supporting our students with, but I wanted to make sure that we called it out so that we can be more explicit about the various opportunities that we provide for our students, which include field trips, such as the field trip that the young ladies will be going as part of their competition, the field trips to visit each other's schools as part of the Student Equity Council work that we have going across our sites. And so wanted to make sure that it was explicitly noted as one of the action items. The key metrics that will be used to measure progress are A through G completion rates, are on track, which notes our yearly metrics for A through G completion, our 6-week data reports, and then obviously the level of implementation to fidelity of each of the actions. The expenditures for this goal that we are proposing for the 23-24 as part of the allocated targeted funds for our 3 student populations is about 11.6 million here that you can see. For goal 2, which speaks to our graduation, we have our actions here, and the newest action here is action 12, which is the coordination of services, implementation of tiered interventions and supports with a focus on our students that are surfaced by that 6th week. And what this essentially is our 11 associate principals of student tiered supports, 1 at each of our comprehensive high schools. And that is the biggest change in this particular one. Some of the key metrics that are used for this particular item is our graduation rates are on track, yearly progress for graduation. And you're going to be seeing a lot of this across each of the goals, which is that 6-week data report, which allows us really to look at the data through the lens of 3 of our key metrics, which is academics through the grades, behavior through referrals, and then attendance. Additionally here, I'd like to point out that in action 6, where you see the parent support and assistance, that is our parent community involvement specialist. And we're actually also going to be bringing in an existing position, which is one of our community resource who focuses on supporting our Vietnamese families. We're going to explicitly now bring them into this particular action item so that they can work in conjunction with the pieces across our school district. And the expenditures for this one amount to 6.4 thousand, inclusive of all those action items that you see listed there. And actually, can you go back to goal 1, Superintendent? I forgot to mention one addition there. Another addition here for action 14, which is specific to the communication and engagement with our parents and guardians. We are shifting to this particular item, our 1.0 coordinator of parent and family engagement, which is not a new, it's a new position, but it's being filled by an existing coordinator. And then that position, which is something you approved at a previous board meeting, that position will no longer exist. And so this position is being shifted. And so again, it's to support our Vietnamese speaking families. And so this item is being explicitly brought into the LCAP and added to action 14. So goal 3, our focus on achievement of our English language learners. For the most part, most of these items remain the same as from the 22-23 school year. The biggest addition here is action number 4. Because we are now expanding our ELD program so that there's an ELD program at each of our high schools, we also have to support with adding bilingual para-educators. And so action 4 is adding about 6.5 FTE in bilingual paraeducators to support the expansion and the growth of our ELD programs across our school sites. And in terms of metrics for this particular goal, we're looking at reclassification rates, our test scores on our English language proficiency exams, student pass rates in core courses, which include math, English, science, again, our 6-week data report, and then again, the level of implementation to fidelity. And the expenditures that contribute to supporting the 3 target populations is about 2 million for this particular goal. For goal 4, establishing and maintaining a safe and healthy school culture. Here you will see the 11 action items listed here. Many of them are carryovers from our 22-23 plan. The newest item here is action 11, support for safe and positive school culture and climate. And essentially what that is 11 campus monitors to be added to our comprehensive high schools. And so in addition to the existing staffing that we already have, we're proposing an addition of campus monitor to each of our comprehensive high schools. The other biggest change is action 5, our 9th grade transition program, where for the past 2 years, we've only had it at about 5 of our schools. We're expanding that to all of our high schools. And so each of the high schools will receive 1.0 teacher on special assignment to target the needs of our 9th grade students who maybe are struggling to make that transition from middle school to high school. And that will account for about 7.3 of the contributing funds that are allocated to serve our 3 student populations. In regards to our key metrics that will be used to measure progress, we're looking at suspension rates, we're looking at the behavior referral rates, we're looking at the survey data through our panorama. Again, 6-week data report, and then the level of implementation to fidelity. For goal 5, this is specific to attendance and chronic absenteeism. And so many of the goals here are carryovers from 22-23. One of the biggest changes is action 4, which is a new attendance tool. We used to use a tool called RAWE, which wasn't meeting our needs. And so we've added a new tool that is more responsive, more timely, and that will allow us to really target our communication and our more timely responses based on the information that we capture from that new attendance tool. And then the other biggest change is action 2, health and wellness planning and monitoring. For that, we're funding just 1 district nurse. And so what we're looking to propose to add is 13 health clerks, so that each of our comprehensive high schools, including our alternative and our largest continuation Foothill, will have a full-time health clerk available to provide for the needs of our students. What we've noticed is that there's rising, increasing health needs that our students bring. In particular, more of our students are diabetic, and we want to make sure that we're updating our vaccination records, right? Having just gone through COVID and still kind of experiencing that, making sure that we have updated vaccination records. And then this will also allow for increased communication with teachers to be able to address the health needs of kids that they may have in their classrooms, as well as then release the attendance staff to focus on attendance as opposed to having to do a variety of tasks. And so that's one of the biggest additions. And so for this particular goal, we're looking at about $2.5 million. And then you could see the key metrics there, chronic absenteeism rates, of course, as one of the key ones, and then the same 2 data pieces.
Super quick question. So we're adding 13, which would bring our total.
No, so we're including 13, and so it would bring our total to 13. So
We have some already.
we have like 6. Yeah, we have 6. And so the 6 will get brought into as part of the LCAP to specifically address the needs that I just listed. And then we will make sure to fill so that we have a total of 13. Thank you for that clarification. And then finally, when we look to goal 6, achievement of our homeless youth and foster youth. Again, many of these, all of these actions actually are carryovers from the 22-23 school year, and no major changes in this particular area. And we're looking at the expenditures here for about 1.1 million. And for these particular 2 groups, we're actually looking at the metrics for all the other goals, right? And so we look at their graduation rate, their A3Q completion rate, their attendance, their behavior. And so all of the metrics that have been listed for all the previous goals will be used to also measure this particular goal. So when you look at the total funding for each of the goals, we actually have a total of about 31 million that we're expending. And this is more than what is projected to be allocated. But the reason why it's more is because we actually, this is inclusive of carryover funds that we had and that we have to utilize. Whenever you have a carryover, you have to utilize, which then adds to the required percentage of funding that has to be used on our 3 target populations. And so because of the carryover, this is actually the amount that must be spent for the 23-24 school year on the 3 target populations of English learners, foster youth, and our low-income students. And so as we look to the future and how we're going to implement and should this plan be approved, one of the big items is the progress monitoring. And this should look familiar to trustees in that the data that we're looking at is, yes, those annual large-scale data points, because that's part of the compliance components that we have to do. They're in alignment with the dashboard, with the accountability measures that the state of California has put forth for all school districts. But for us, really, we're looking to engage more with that periodic data, which is inclusive of those yearly on-track measures, as well as that whole child data report or the 6-week data report that we use, and really looking to hone in more on what's happening in the classrooms. What is the support that we can provide for teachers to engage in more formative assessments, to provide more interventions in the classroom so that the kids are knowing where the gaps are and we're being able to fill those academic gaps so the students, we're not waiting for the students to fail even at the 6 weeks. We're able to capture it a lot sooner. And then, of course, as mentioned to you before, we're looking to ensure that we're looking at what's the capacity of the system to be able to really carry out this plan, looking at the knowledge, the skills, the ability, the capacity of our staff, looking at the relationships that we've established as part of the system to ensure that we're going to be able to work together and get that collective efficacy to really increase the and improve the outcomes. Looking at the coherence of the program where we're looking at it as an integrated approach and looking at the resources, right? Are we allocating the resources where they need to be allocated? So what's next? Should the plan be approved? We're looking to ensure that we're going to use that capacity and implementation data, start looking at developing rubrics and scales for each of those elements so that we truly then can look at the fidelity of implementation for each of those action items. We're going to continue to look at the 3 levels of outcome data, but more intentionally, in particular, that 6-week data report. We're going to focus specifically on, as I mentioned, that our 6-week data report, the whole child data report, as well as formative assessments. Because there's so many roles within the LCAP, we really want to look at developing common assurances within each of those roles. So when we say academic counseling, what does that actually mean and what does it look like across the board? Focus on tier 1 instruction and intervention. So really hone in and focus on effective teaching and effective leadership. And we don't really have to reinvent the wheel. It's already there for us. When we get our credential as teachers, when we get our credential as administrators, we are saying, I have this credential. And so yes, California Department of Education Commission on Teacher Credentialing, I will adhere to those California standards for the teaching profession, and I will adhere to those California professional standards for educational leaders. And so really hone in on prioritizing those and looking at what's the professional development needed to make sure that we're all actually adhering to the highest quality in each of those standards. And so lastly, I just leave you with this, just a reminder that the LCAP is no one singular item. It is a strategic, comprehensive plan that is intended to respond as a system to the various needs that our students bring. And we can't departmentalize what it is that those needs are. It's that whole child that comes to us. They come with academic needs. They come with social emotional needs. They come with behavior and wellness needs. And so really, when you look at the plan and should it be approved, the work then to implement is really going to be to implement it through an integrated approach. And so before I end, I do just want to recognize some of the team. This is not just my own creation. You see the plan is about 103-page plan. And so you'll notice, I think behind me is many of my team from Ed Services who have contributed both their expertise, the research, the data to be able to put this comprehensive plan together. So I do want to recognize my Ed Services leadership team and my Ed Services folks right here. Stand up, please. And really the plan, if approved, will work and because of the leadership and the work that they'll put forth, as well, the leadership and the work of every single role that you've seen there, the pieces, the counselors, the social workers, the administrators, and it'll work because it's done through the lens of collective efficacy, right? And collective efficacy is everyone believing and having a shared vision and understanding of what the goals are and believing that it can actually be done. And all the research shows that if in a system you have that collective efficacy, then that actually is the biggest impact, has the biggest impact on student achievement, being that collective group that believes in what you're doing and then it can be carried out. I also want to thank business department. A lot of work went into it. You see all the various documents that are connected to business. So my colleague, Dr. Huntoon, and then also our Director of Finance, Sylvia Pelayo, who have worked tirelessly on this as well for all the pieces that go into the business. And just to kind of prove just the comprehensiveness, the strategic, the integrated aspect of it, my colleague, Mr. Nguyen, also works to implement and put in place this plan. As you can see, the various roles that are there. And so the support from HR, the support from business has been invaluable in being able to put together this plan. And that concludes my presentation.
Right on. We'll do public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Marquez. Okay, now we're opening up for public comment in this part. So why don't we start with people here? I only have one public comment request for this item. Jack Hamner. I believe you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Jack Hamner. I'm president of Eastside Teachers Association, and I'm just here to speak on behalf of one of the other reasons why we have a little bit of a contention with some of the items in the LCAP. I'm not going to speak about most of those because a lot of us will speak tonight, have already spent, I don't know, 4 or 5 meetings going around and doing all of this. So what's been said has been said. But the part that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention was, for a district that, preaches not to be biased, I really feel myself personally that this process was quite biased. And I'll tell you why. It's because a year ago, we went and we did all of this. It was part of the LCAP to have an extra administrator. And it was decided at that time not to do it. So what I knew coming into this year was, irregardless of anything that was going to happen at any of these LCAP meetings, that we were going to be here doing the same thing again. The same thing that we did a year ago. So what I did, and you can see that because I had to print all this out for you, is I transcripted all of the communication between Mr. Pardo and Ms. Marquez and stuff that happened starting in December. And all we ever wanted, like all we have ever wanted in the last 4 years, once we got a change in leadership here at this district, which has been fantastic, by the way, is to be included in the processes of things that happen. We don't want to be the decision maker, but we want to be part of it. If we are going to be collaborative, like we claim we're going to be, then what happened in this process is anything but that. And furthermore, not only to go along with that, and I'll get to that in a second, but one of the other processes that did that didn't take place is with Superintendent Glenn here, who I meet probably, let's say bi-weekly, monthly. Oftentimes he would ask about or mention the fourth administrator. And I told him already what our stance was and how I didn't really support it as it was. But one of the things that I said was, hey, we'd be happy to support it if we could get this done. And there was a couple of things. And one of the hugest ones was campus safety, because I'm willing to bet that every single one of you here tonight would happen to agree that campus safety is our number one priority. And when our students and our admin don't feel safe, that's a pretty big problem. But the thing is that he can tell you and I can tell you is we never had any formal discussions or conversations about what those types of things would look like so that we would be complacent enough to be able to support an extra administrator. Okay. It just never happened. And I don't know why. I mean, I'm not going to speculate, but the bottom line is there was never any discussion. Okay. With Mrs. Marquez, there was a couple things that happened. You can see in the transcripts, using her words, it was a priority analysis, and we asked 2 or 3 times to be involved in that process. And that didn't happen either. Julio Pardo, who isn't here tonight, who up until tonight has been opposed to all this as well, but now is happy because he got 13 new campus monitors and 13 new health clerks. Of course, he's going to be happy about it. But you even said, if you heard him last week, he put his hands up. He's tired of fighting. And he just said, hey, well, maybe I need to put my hands up because maybe I'm going to get something that we need too. And we need safer campuses. That's really what it's about. I just feel like that the voices were ignored. If you saw some of the things that were on there tonight, kids want better interaction with their teachers and better support. And that means smaller class size. And that's what they were saying. And they've been saying that for years. Have we ever done that? No, we haven't. Why do we ignore that? Because we're picking and choosing what we want. And it's a bias. And if you don't see it, I'm sorry that you don't, but it's there. And like I said, we're happy to support these things, but you know something? Campus safety is it's got to be the number one priority. And we've talked about this before. And the only thing that we ever did was we supported independence. Why not everybody else? I don't know, but that's on you, not me. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any hands up on one? Written comments? Great. Written comments, Mary?
Yes, online public comment. Online public comment from staff member Kirsten King. Good evening, Board of Trustees. My name is Kirsten King, and I am the Director of Assessment and Accountability for the district. Eastside shows disparities in student outcomes, especially for our special student groups such as English language learners, students with disabilities, foster youth, and our homeless youth. As a system, we want all students to graduate prepared for college and career, yet our system is not producing this high outcome for all our students. I believe it is time to change and bolster our system. The LCAP presented to you is a comprehensive plan of actions, services, and supports for our students, especially our most vulnerable students. This plan has the potential to profoundly shift our system by providing coordinated efforts to support students and staff and create high-level outcomes for all of our students. I urge you to approve the LCAP plan in its entirety and set the wheels in motion to create positive and powerful system changes for our students. Online public comment from Thomas Brittendahl, staff member. This is 901, agenda item 901. Even with another administrator, student outcomes won't improve until the district rebalances its incentive structures. One such structure is discipline. In addition to principals not supporting teachers, advisors, and other staff with campus discipline, the district now seeks to make involuntary transfers extremely difficult or impossible. Under agenda item 12.02, the first reading of board policy and AR changes to 6184. I will email you all my concerns with the proposed changes and urge you not to support the district's attempt to restrict the use of involuntary transfers. These policy changes have serious effects on our students, both the significant few who need the environment of a continuation school and the overwhelming majority of students who want more than anything to have safe and secure campuses. This attempted policy change is a real-time example of the administration creating its own problems with policies that do not help our students. Until this changes, an additional administrator is not the answer. This is also Thomas Brittendahl, staff member, but for agenda item 902. The superintendent's claim that case management support can't be part of the LCAP because it's negotiated or special education doesn't fall under the purview of the LCAP. This despite the district adding additional counselors to reduce caseload and inclusion support specialists to, hold on a second, to aid special education students. The LCAP justifies the inclusion support specialist as support for teachers in meeting the needs of students with disabilities. The district's rejection of case management support is not out of restrictions from the LCAP or negotiations, but from their long-lasting devaluing of the position. On slide 15 of the district's presentation, students reported that the social, emotional, and mental health support and the academic counseling is either working well or extremely well. These are two key functions the new administration would oversee. The district would see greater gains by investing LCAP funds elsewhere than an administrator to oversee services that are already functioning well. Public comment from CSEA President Julio Pardo. Good evening, Board and Superintendent Vanderzee. I am Julio Pardo, President of East Foothills Chapter 187 of the Classified School Employees Union. I am sorry I cannot be present to make these comments, but my family matters have come up which require my immediate attention. I am commenting on item 901 regarding the use of LCAP funds. Although I do not see it listed specifically, I understand that the district wishes to use some of those funds to create a new AP position to coordinate student services. I can see where such a position could be helpful. As with any new position, there must be time to make it successful. But if within 3 years, the data does not show any difference, I hope the district would put the funds to a new use. I also do not see the listing of campus monitors, although it has been discussed at past meetings. This item I feel is not truly necessary. The implementation of this item was brought up mainly due to the events that have occurred on our campuses since the COVID epidemic. I agree that more surveillance of campus is necessary to keep our students in class. However, there are many adults on campus now who do not teach class and are to work with students. Why cannot schedules be made and have these adults walk the campus at certain times to associate with these students? Go to the students rather than waiting for them to come to you. We could really use more health clerks. We currently have them covering 2 or more campuses each. When they are on the campus, they can deal with the students directly and determine if they need to be at home or just need a short time to recover. This would allow the student to possibly miss only 1 or 2 classes rather than the rest of the day. As it is now, most of the time a call is made home to come and pick up the sick student, which means that they miss academic time. For some students, special handling is necessary. Since most of this is confidential, the front office at school would not have the knowledge on handling such a situation. The health clerk would. The safety and health of the student would be handled properly by the health clerk. Proper handling of health issues for the student, the ability to monitor the student for a short while on campus without drawing attention away from other duties and determining if they can return to class, thus giving the student more academic time. I believe these are valid reasons for a health clerk at every campus. I would love it if we could have both the extra campus monitor at each site along with a health clerk at each site. But if a choice must be made, give us the clerks first and then as many monitors as possible. Thank you for your time and consideration. Public comment from for 902, Deb Yelverton, staff member. As a special education teacher for 41 years at Independence High School, I am asking that the board consider supporting students by other means and adding an administrator. Over the past 10 years, the special education landscape has drastically changed, placing a much higher demand on the time teachers of special needs students require to manage caseloads, write IEP updates, administer assessments, and teach classes. While teachers are dedicated to their students, the workload is crushing. This could be mitigated by increasing the number of special education teachers, which would reduce caseload numbers, allowing improved student success and parent involvement. While some efforts have been made to offer student support in certain areas, there remains a need for a clearly articulated vision, coordination, and alignment of support services to meet the needs of our students. This can be achieved through staff collaboration between existing administrators. Please utilize resources in the most effective way to benefit all. Public comment from staff member Anthony Aquino. As a special education teacher and former Eastside Union High School District student, I'm asking you to reconsider the potential hiring of extra administrators. I propose investing in hiring additional special education teachers that support students' educational success. Decreasing our caseload will improve the development and implementation of the IEPs. The more teachers are available, IEPs are written and implemented more promptly. Disciplinary issues among our special education students will reduce. We can implement proactive behavior management strategies, provide timely interventions, and cultivate stronger relationships with our students. Allocating resources toward hiring special education and supporting services will enhance the well-being and safety of our students. Investing in an extra administrator yields a lesser benefit. Thank you for considering this proposal. You hold the authority to prioritize resources in a manner that meets the requirements of our students. Please weigh the benefits and decide to enhance our students' educational opportunities. Public comment from Shannon Holloman, staff member. I am a special education teacher at Independence High School. I currently teach in the ED program. I spend more time this year doing IEPs than teaching in my classroom. We need more support for our IEPs. Please get support for IEPs and lower caseloads, not paying for another administrator. I have one family that had 12 official IEP meetings this year, and each meeting was a minimum of 2 hours long, which means that I spent a whole 24 hours in IEP meetings for one student. This does not account for the other countless hours of communicating with the mother and outside support for this one student. We cannot keep up with the demands of the parents, IEP expectations, ISP, and initial IEPs that are being constantly thrown at us and still teach class. We need to have more teacher support and district support with the severity of our students. Our ED social worker is overworked and can't service all the students she is supposed to service. This puts the Eastside Union High School District out of compliance and creates lawsuits. Public comment from staff member Gina Engelfinger. Please do not hire more administrators. We need boots on the ground to take the action necessary to address our most vulnerable youth. We need positions that will continue to help our at-risk students. The LCAP is specially designed to serve, including special education, teachers, counselors, advisors, and campus monitors. Administrators oversee these positions. Students will not benefit from any more overseers. While I appreciate what each individual job description each administrator is tasked to carry out, their job requirements do not embody the high level of one-on-one interaction our at-risk students must receive. If we added more counselors, special education teachers, and safety-related positions, we are giving our most vulnerable students a better chance at acquiring the attention they need to prepare them for their futures. We as a district promise to provide a safe and engaging learning environment. This is our mission statement. Thank you for your time in reading this. There is no other public comment under 901 and 902.
Thank you. Now online.
We do have one person who would like to speak. Joe, if you could unmute yourself, you have 2 minutes. If you could state your name and your position. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, you hear me now?
We hear you, Joe.
Okay, hi, my name is Joe Dam. I am a parent of the YB High School, and I am a member of my the Parent Alignment Group. And one of my parents have sent an email to the member of the board, and I hope you guys read it too. I'm here to support to having additional admins for my school. I don't know about other school, but it's nice to have an admin. I'm at school three days a week because we are doing a fundraising by selling stuff at school. So I help the school to raise money, and I can see that they need additional admins because my witness, the three admin at my school, they run around every time the bell ring, and I see parents waiting for talk to them, but they can't because they need to monitor the school. We have about 1,700 students in this school, so they are very busy. So I hope you guys, and I think you should support additional admin. But I know that we school need a lot of help, counselor, teacher, school staff, and gardener. But I think we should start at the top to have help, because right now I don't think they have help. I talked to a couple of administrators. What they tell me is right now they are doing what required, which is not good, because when you go to a job, you want to do more than what required. But I don't think they have time to do that. And I'm also sit on the school councils, and I know that the problem they have, some of the kids that didn't show up to school for a long time, and they try very hard, and they do in the weekend, and they call them at night, and still that it's not working out. So I believe if you have extra admins to make the job not easy, but much understand to work through the problem. The more people put an idea, to give an idea, each of them have a different idea, so it might work well. So the bottom line is we need a lot of help, but I think we should start at the top, get another admin, help the admin team at my school or other school if they need it. So that's my comment. So I hope the board member will favor for having an admin, and I hope you guys read the email that one of my parents sent this morning or yesterday. I don't remember, but we sent a very long email. She said, "Quinn, my Quinn,
Yes.
thank you very much."
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Appreciate you calling in.
That's the end of online comment.
Okay, so calling for public speakers the second time. Are there any other public speakers? Okay, calling for public speakers the third time. Any other speakers? Okay, the public testimony on this matter is now closed. All right, so that's 9.01 and 9.02. I believe there are no actions. Yes, there's just presentation and the hearing combined.
It's just a presentation tonight. The board has to take no action. The action will be
Right.
taken on the 22nd.
Yep.
You
Great.
can ask questions or comment.
Yeah, this is discussion. So, yeah. But we can move on to now item number 9.03. So we'll do something. Oh,
If
wait.
he's going to ask questions on this item, he should ask it
Oh,
under
sorry,
902.
That was my signal.
Oh, okay. You need to be very clearer with me. Sorry, apologies for that.
I'll be happy to.
Go ahead.
If we can
Sorry.
Go back to the. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Trustee Cortese. If you don't mind, we can go back to do a little discussions of the planned budget that is being spent on this. What I have on the agenda, that will be under the 2023-24 total plan expenditures. That's what we actually are planning to spend money on.
Is there a slide you want me
Yes.
to refer to?
I can drop that on the it's a document. It's the actual total plan expenditures. This presentation does not disclose the actual expenditures. Can we discuss that, or would that be on a limit to what's presented?
A little better under the budget, or
It's
does
part
it
of the
relate to
LCAP.
the plan itself?
It's part of the LCAP for under 9.02. And that was sent to us, or more accurately, it's part of the agenda.
Yeah, if you go, superintendent, I think it's slide 3 where it shows all the or there, yeah. Part of the requirement is as part of the package submission, I include all of the fiscal requirements. One of them is a budget overview for parents, which is a document that is intended to be more accessible for our parents so that they can see the estimated actual expenditures for 22-23, as well as the proposed expenditures for 23-24. What's included is the total planned expenditures table for the incoming year, the contributing actions tabled for the incoming year, and then from the current year, the annual update table, the contributed actions annual update table, and then the carryover table.
Right. That's what I'm seeing on my screen as well. You go through some of the bigger ticket item. I mean, obviously, I am assuming the discussion for that admin is under the coordination of MTSS at school site provided by MTSS teachers on special assignment at 2.5 million, or is that the one I'm looking at, or the others one I should be looking at?
What goal do you have?
That under 4 down, 1, 2, 3, 4. Go number 1, action number 4, coordination MTS at school site,
Oh, I think that's
on page
something
1,
It's here.
2.5 million.
Yes.
Yes, that's the Ford admin. My understanding was 2 million. We are now at 2.5.
Wait, excuse, so
Yeah.
that item actually is the teachers on special assignment, which is their salaries and benefits. And so that accounts for 13 FTE, teachers on special assignment.
Okay. So that item is the coordination of that's the MTSS. Which one is the actual referring to the issue of the Ford admin?
That would be under goal 2, action 12.
To action 12. $2.1, is that, no, that's
2.4.
parent support.
2,455,511.
To 2.45 million.
Yes.
Got it. The coordinations. Are there any other school districts that are using the LCAP as part of the coordinations for for the MTSS, multi-tier interventions and support? Any other school districts that are using this in this?
I'd
map?
have to check, but I'm sure they are, given that multi-tier systems of support are now something that is actually part of Ed Code, but I don't have that information.
I was given, we were given as part of our study sessions, a list of the school districts, a number of principals and an AP that any one of those schools in that list that are currently using as part of their AP associate principal, vice principal, using in the similar manner that we are proposing today.
Probably not, because they're not as smart as we are.
No, I just use this thing called Google.
That's something we can look into, and we can
Yeah.
get back to you with that, with a response to that.
I just use this thing called Google. There's no, I just click a couple button and.
Well, no, you have to dig deeper than Google, so you have to contact the individual districts and even school sites individually and ask their administrative team or
I'm sure their LCAPs are probably posted on their websites. That's part of the requirement. So you could probably go back and look at 22-23 and see what they have.
I'm sure you can ask and do it deeper and let us know.
Yeah, so
But-
I'm sorry, so the question at hand is of the chart that you're referencing that has our various neighboring schools and districts that have administrators, et cetera. Do any of those administrators are they doing any of the work that has been proposed in our LCAP? Is that the question that you're asking?
There's a couple of bunch of questions. The first question is, are they using in a similar manner that we are proposing today? Right? Because the reason you provide that is the study sessions, during the study session was to show us a kind of comparisons. Right?
Was
So
the
I'm
staffing-
just hoping that we compare apple to apple,
Sure.
or we compare apple to orange.
That was comparing just the staffing levels. As far as what is done with those staff, that varies very much from site to site and district to district, but we can do our best to investigate further into that.
I just click on a couple, which is like the next school in the district. What I don't see is they do not structure the same way that we structures it at our district. For example, what you probably should want to look at, since I received a note from one of my colleagues, and it's important for us to look. They don't do an associate principal of ED and APD. What a lot of them, particularly run right next to the list, is they're using their AP as an advisor. So what it means is they have an AP, and they will handle all the surname from A to, for example, G, and then, H to so and so and so. So that's the reason why. And those schools, like the one you example was given to us, they was actually showing us their, they don't have an advisor because their AP is the APs are the advisor.
Yeah, different school districts will organize themselves in different ways based on their data, the culture, their needs, what other positions they might have in place with campus monitors, advisors, or counselor numbers. And so in preparing this plan to you, we're looking at we do have the teachers on special assignment for that work with our teachers and instructional strategies with that role. The addition of the associate principal of multi-tiered student supports really is us looking at our needs that we're seeing post-COVID and illuminate the amount of supports that we have within this LCAP through social work supports, counseling supports, and coordinating and making sure that we have someone that has that ability to spend, to call in a care team, to student success team, to call for an IEP, to have the authority on changes of placement, to be able to sign off on that as well, to be able to meet with our parents of our learners who might just be passing one class, looking for coordinating services with existing personnel for students that are passing multiple classes or we're seeing deeper issues, and making sure that we have in our evaluation structure the accountability built in to make sure that work can be assigned and work can be directed to the outcomes we want. Not every district is going to look like us, because not every district in our city has not every district around us has over 1,000 unhoused students identified in our area, or has to direct services with ELs at a greater level, or deal with the socioeconomic realities of our system. So our neighboring districts might not be providing those services to our students the same way we do.
I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is that every school district have a different need, different cultures, and that when we can make comparisons, we have to compare apple to apple, look deeper into what the school district, why they operate in the manner they operate in. So when we say things like whether we staff unders or higher or lower, it had a great deal to do with the natures how the school district are structures, right? So when someone said, well, we have 2 AP, they have 5 or 6, that's not necessarily the case, right? When we do just a simple look into it, what we realize is school districts are structured differently. Now, all of them structured in the manner that we structure, they just simply have a different needs. And whether the plan that we're putting forward meet the needs or not, we have to look at not only today finance, but also multiple years in the days ahead. And we have to look at our budgets, which I think Dr. Huntoon is going to present shortly.
Yeah, we would agree with those comments, which is why we've crafted the plan in this manner, and also cognizant of how we as a district have put our understanding that we have to do a 3-year budget, but we only get allocated or get informed by the state annually about what that's going to be. And that we've decided always as a district for the last number of years to move that number out to the 3rd year, with the emphasis of being mindful, but also making sure that we spend the appropriated monies on our students now. And that's why when you have the 25 million that's in our current allocation, but we do have that carryover, that does allow us to provide even more additional services for next year into the future, but also with the mind that this is a 3-year plan that's revisited. The rules of LCAP are switching soon, that if you don't demonstrate progress, you have to then defend why that action item is still there. And that 3 years aligned with this budget as well.
I think we are aligned on that perspective as far as we're making 3-year plans. The commitment we hire our staff, it is not the 1 year. It is that they've been hired by us. I respect Mr. Pardo, but I think it's very difficult for us to hire good talent when we tell them 3 years from now, you may not have a job. I think we make it very, very challenging to hire super, talented people. But we have to recognize, and I think we're gonna have the similar discussion or somewhat in some fashions when Dr. Hunt to present the ongoing budgets. So we're making forecasts 3 years ahead. We got to recognize that whoever we hire, we are committed to hire. We can't just simply say, sorry, the next coming year, we're just not gonna have the money, we'll let you go before we reach the, reap the benefit of having additional staff.
Yes, first of all, I would like to say thank you for Associate Superintendent Teresa Marcus and all of your staff have put this comprehensive, most very well prepared and well written. My question here is, could you summarize for me those action item that you have in red? I saw this is like page 19. Action 15 and 16, a new action item for 23-24 school years. So action 15 mentioned about coordination and support system-wide implementation of academic and social emotional school and counseling practice and support structure using MTSS framework. So this is the action number 15. Is that for the 4 administrator? Am I correct?
No.
No?
That one is the 1.0 teacher on special assignment counseling subject area
Oh.
coordinator. She's actually already in place. I'm just bringing her in and noted her in the LCAP because of all the work that she does specific to supporting the counselors across the school sites
I see.
to target our 3 student populations.
Oh, I see. So to summarize the LCAP presentation, I noticed that you mentioned that we will have a 13 campus monitor or 11? 11 campus monitor and 6 additional health clerk.
I think it's closer to 7. Yeah,
So that's
7
just to make
to
it
bring us
count.
back to the 13, 1 for each of our comprehensive high schools, and then 1 for our alternative side, and then Foothill, which is our largest continuation school.
Awesome. I know that some folks is very happy to hear about safety as well as the health clerk. My question to you here is if one of the item will be eliminated, what happened to the budget of the LCAP? Because when you present it to county and when everything is approved, but what happened if the plan was not happen, then what happened to those budget?
We have to reallocate them. So we would have to look at other actions. We'd have to look at other things that we can allocate those resources to. The 31 million that is listed has to be included in the plan. We have to account for it. We have to account for it in terms of actions that contribute to improved services for our foster youth, English learners, and low-income students. And so similar to last year when I brought it forth, and there was questions, the plan that then I brought forth was the removal of the item with those funds allocated, but because of the short timing, they were just the funding was placed in goal 6. But there was it was a gross over budget in that particular goal. And so because this has to be approved by June 30th, we have to have for the county an approved plan before June 30th. On June 22nd, pending the decision, I'd have to act quickly, go back and look at my data collected to see if there's any other, tertiary or 4th or 5th kind of action, input that was given that maybe we could reallocate some of those resources.
And that's part, board member, that's part of our plan, and part of the LCAP plan is accounting for the differences in what you budgeted and what you expensed. Because there are times where positions go unfilled. There's not someone in our area that is seeking or fills the position. And so that happens annually in our plans. And so we account for that. And then that's part of what goes into.
Yeah, and that's part of the requirement. If you look through the plan, at the end of each goal, there's a goal analysis as well as an explanation that has to be provided for the difference between budgeted expenditures and estimated actuals at the given time.
Awesome. I want to say that I have received so many emails, support and oppose for the 4 administrators. So I have some concern about, how could we work together collaboratively, in this issue? Because I know that we divide our district in one way or the other. And I hate to see that it's not really a strong issue that everyone will agree. So I was thinking about you know, in the sense of this, if we don't have the form administrator, should we replace it with any other position? Or we have to just have to follow with the LCAP presentation? I just want to see, you know, one way, the other, because I know that a lot of parents as well as students, as well as teachers and staff has voiced their opinion. And to me, to sit here and hear all of those stakeholders, I really appreciate that time to put it in. But my thought is, you know, what are we going to work together, you know, on this issue?
Thank you for that. And yeah, there's a lot of divided opinion on this issue, and that's okay. There's a certain health to this. I've heard from various groups at the study sessions, and while we're looking at these three groups primarily, I hear that there's some concerns around safety. That's why the campus monitor is in there. That's also why the multi-tiered associate principal multi-tiered student supports is there to drive be able to focus on our students that aren't going to class, what we call them wanderers or roamers. I just call them students that need to be engaged and move towards their learning. And then we're going to need to target some systems for that. You've heard that we've heard from the emails, and we've heard when Associate Superintendent Marquez was doing her listening campaign across the district, that their 9th grade transition was an issue, which is why you see additional credentialed teachers being added to this LCAP, where there's already 100 people in this LCAP that are funded wholly or partially within this plan. To add those teachers into this to provide for 9th grade students. You also heard from the health clerks, and the reason that is listening to this data and going, okay, we do have students with higher health needs. And when they don't have the health clerk there every day, the attendance secretaries and attendance clerks have to fill in. And we know we'd like to have them focusing on our students that are not attending. And we know that a lot of some of those attendance issues are dealt with socioeconomic status and also with health concerns. So that's why it's there. We also heard about the loads for case management. Okay.
Right.
The fact that this conversation or this suggestion of with all the hundreds of positions and the additional positions for this year, that the one position that will cost us even less than teachers on special assignment for multi-tiered systems of support, which board member Doe, thanks for identifying for the group here today, that it's a coordinated collective action. And we spend our monies today for our students' needs for now. And so that's why this administration is coming to you, because that particular position in terms of the associate principal has the ability to direct work, has the ability to respond, expel, suspend, call for IEPs, work with our different groups, call student groups in and meet with them, direct services towards individuals. We feel that that has to be part of the collective work that we have, and we've already invested in the 27 social workers, the counselors that are under the state average. Do I hear that we would love to have more of all of those? Yes, that's what I hear. Do I hear that we have concerns from some of our groups about just the nature of project-based learning and CTE programs? We hear that. This LCAP plan is not, it is a collective plan, but it is not the 100% of our total actions as a district. And we can still engage and improve around safety, around special ed services, around project and problem-based learning and CTE pathways. All those things that we've been hearing, to me, don't go away by this plan. It means we continue to engage around those. We know that there are competing interests and competing demands at times, but looking holistically, we believe, and I believe as your superintendent, that the amazing elements of this plan as a whole will work better if all the elements that are identified in this are able to work collaboratively as it's presented.
So in a way, in the LCAP presentation, I know that maybe I'm not sure that I missed, but I heard that a couple speaker mentioned about special ed teachers or CTE teacher. I think that's two elements is very important to really support for our student. as well as, of the district. Am I correct?
I've heard the same thing. That's why I was mentioning those two. And what I also want to say to you is this is not the sole, this plan is not the only plan. It's not the only form of action. I think Tim's sitting back there and does a lot of work for our CTE with other funding sources. So hearing that concern today, I go, great. Guess what we're talking about next year? We're talking about how we might look at our CTE pathways and how we might get problem and project-based learning into more of our classrooms for greater engagements for all our students. So even though it might not be directly involved in the LCAP plan, part of the health of people saying, hey, we need work, we have some work to do here is like, great, thanks for lifting that up because now we've got energy towards it and let's continue to collaborate together in the future on those items. But they might come from funding sources like CTE grants and things like that and not from the LCAP itself.
Oh, I see.
Actually, if you notice, one of the examples is action 9 here on this slide, promoting career readiness by supporting and increasing enrollments in career technical education pathways in Silicon Valley. That's not funded. That's not one of the actions that is actually directly funded as part of the 11 million. That actually comes from CTE funds and grants that Director Nguyen puts together and he coordinates. But because I want this to be an integrated approach, you see some of those elements within this plan, but they're not funded as part of the money allocated. You'll see in the plan, if you go through the plan, you will see the funding source in some of these is Title II because it's based on professional development. And some of these you will see we're using other funds, such as the ESSER funds, which are the federal dollars, as well as our learning recovery grant. But because I want this to be an integrated approach and plan to meeting our goals, you see some of those elements within there that are not all funded as part of the supplemental money.
Okay, only one last comment that I have that I'm just only concerned about the budget. I'm echo what Trustee Doe mentioned. And I hate to say that if we create a position and a year from now, if we don't have money, we let them go. It's really really hurt, me inside that, to create a good plan, then we don't have enough budget, then we're gonna have to eliminate it. That is what I'm gonna be concerned about it.
That's a fair concern, and it's a concern that Soup's Council and we lose sleep on nightly, right? Just for the future with funding and things like that. May I ask you though, just in this, with respect to the position, just in terms of the new positions and budgeting, are you making that comment on just the additional associate principal, but also the additional 9th grade transition teachers, campus monitors, and health coach?
No, I just was wondering about the floor administrator. Well, for campus monitor and health clerk, I know that we really need one of those service. That's only what I'm concerned because that is a big chunk of money. When we look back and we're gonna look forward in a couple of years from now, we might not have enough money. And I hate to see that we have to eliminate it. We start all over again. So if we can look into the problem, so if we have a hole in this department, maybe we try to help to support the department instead of looking to overall, then later on, we don't have enough money, we have to eliminate it. That's my concern.
Okay, and I hear that, but I guess in hearing that concern, then I would have to factor in the other positions as well. Just
Which other position you want to cut?
No, I'm not talking about positions. I want to
Campus monitor.
And I didn't say that. And I didn't say that. And I want to make it very clear. I did not talk about cutting positions. I'm saying the analysis of our plan, I would want to make as we analyze and make an analysis for like 2 weeks and presenting something to you on the 22nd. That then with that thinking in mind, we would probably have to look at with all of those positions kind of to see what that long-term effect would be. Our goal
I don't
is-
know, my colleagues have questions. If
I
you want to.
know Cortese has some thoughts and so does Herrera, and then I want to close them too. Thank you. Cortese.
My question is sort of technical, and probably one I should already know, but LCAP funds, are they considered restricted funds? Or general funds or gray area? Yeah.
They are not considered restricted funds. However, they are required to be spent for very specific items.
So the
Got it.
word normally associated with LCAP funds is targeted more so than restricted.
Got it.
And the
Got it.
targeted goes for those three groups. We know those other overlap with disabilities and other demographic factors, especially in a district
Sure.
like ours. But the intent that we need to demonstrate in our plan is that we're being intentional about of our $360 or more million budget, that with this 30, we're being very intentional to these learners.
So we're
And-
go ahead. I'm sorry. please.
And I was just going to add to that, the auditors also do review that to ensure that those are being spent in the manner that we had indicated in the plan.
So
Yeah.
it's a use or lose it kind of situation, or worse than that.
Yeah, and there's a required percentage that has to be met for
Yes.
improved services.
Right.
And so we have to meet that percentage, which for this one is the 31 million.
I mean, I did learn in my Masters of Governance class that today's funds are for today's kids.
That's right.
So,
Yes.
yeah, so we need to, so we're actually accountable for using the money that we've been given to provide the services that today's students need.
Correct. And when there is
And-
carryover, as Ms. Marquez has mentioned, we have to be able to demonstrate that those dollars are being reallocated as part of that carryover.
Got it. You know, and I appreciate my colleagues' concerns about the long, positions. And I've been on the board for 8 years and we've had that same concern for the whole time and have never had it realized. And that doesn't mean that we won't ever have it realized, but I think that it's, we have an obligation to provide for the needs of our students today, especially with the tremendous needs that they all have given this post-pandemic era. So anyway, that's just my food for thought.
Thank you. Herrera.
I was really interested in the remarks that our superintendent gave extemporaneously in response to in which you, I think, articulated a whole I never forget that. I'm going to repeat myself and say that I was very am very interested in the response the superintendent gave to board member Lay, in which you acknowledged the concerns being raised about funding needed in many other areas. And I would like you to listen to that and use it as a guide to give at least me, if not the whole board, a written statement to that effect. That presented, I think, a very incisive and knowledgeable framework addressing the issues that continually are coming up. Because I find myself in conversations where I don't have your ability to frame things and anchor the direction that we're going in. And
Thanks for that. I'm going to back up about 10 years though. We've not had people approach very much the dais and say, we need parent community involvement specialists. We did not have people say we need a juvenile justice social worker. We did not have people come up truly before those actions as much and say, we need additional counselors. And I'm talking to the microphone here, right? Or the additional social workers, or the social workers that help us have a very unique and special relationship with universities around us for social work interns, which gets even more contact with our students. But those positions are in the LCAP because over the years, Ed Services has done a very good job of going out and listening. And when hearing things that were perhaps inconvenient or, oh, how are we going to do that? Not rejecting it out of hand, but filling out how to get it into the LCAP, how to orchestrate it, and how to direct it for its services for students. And so as we added ninth grade transition programs, as we expand ninth grade position programs, that's because we see the data, we see the need, and we hear educators, our quality educators across Eastside and our quality parents that give us data that say, I don't know quite what the answer is, but this is what I'm feeling the problem is. And so this plan is not just these additional resources tonight. This is a document that has continued to respond to articulated needs, whether out there to be heard, or now in the last 2 years, increasingly here. We will never stop listening. And while this plan might not be able to satisfy every demand or every need that our system is saying we have, it doesn't mean we're going to stop listening. And it doesn't mean we're going to stop problem solving. And it doesn't mean we're not going to continue to utilize our resources in a way to respond positively. This place did amazing in response to COVID. Let's talk about other districts or not and how they started or didn't start an independent studies program for our students. We had over 700 students in independent studies program that had an Eastside qualified teacher responding to them. Because straight up, year before, we recognized that we would need to make a move to getting per diems for 6-period assignments at a salaried wage and not an hourly wage, which allowed us to then post-COVID respond with a robust independent studies program that this ed services team heard, predicted, that that we're able to work with our bargaining units for that to be able to set it up so that it was right for all. And we responded amazing. But knowing there was no outside organization saying Eastside do it this way or this is how you get it done. It's through listening and engagement. And when it's even uncomfortable, to continue to listen. And some people in their frustration or their zeal maybe present in a different way. We're just going to continue to hear their words and continue to listen, not negate it, but it might not be in this plan, but we're not done listening and working together.
So, see what I mean? You're able to speak to this in a way that is understandable and persuasive.
It speak to it because it's how our organization is increasingly operating. And it would be discouraging. I think it would be, let's put it like this. I don't want one issue that people can't agree on to send a message that we don't agree on everything and we can't agree and we can't work together, because we do and we can and we will. We might disagree on this one. I might be walking around here in a couple of years going, hey man, you went for the admin, and I'll wear that because I'll also say, yeah, and I went for social workers and counselors and continue to dialogue to make us right for kids. I'm trying to do it in a way to make sure that we're fiscally responsible and understanding that the world is ever changing. And that sometimes we're limited in our view of our funding sources, but yeah, this comprehensive plan is intended to move us towards serving those students better, but is by no means intended to silence, refute, or deny issues that other groups have raised. It's part of this process. And I find that just to be healthy, not a sign of sickness or lack of strength.
So, and I'll be done right here. Yeah, so I do have a concern for the issues that continually get brought forward on campus safety, on special ed, as the two biggies. And in moving forward, it's going to be important for me that we keep our eye on the ball on those two areas and more. I'm not sure from anything that's been said so far what's happening in response to Julio Pardo's, repeated focus on health clerks and or even trading away some campus monitors. I mean, I'm not knowledgeable like our superintendent, our associate superintendent, and our bargaining unit reps, leaders. I mean, you all have a lot more understanding. I'm a volunteer. I show up for meetings. I don't spend 40 hours a week here. And so I try to listen, but I'm just saying, I really do have an interest in demonstrating that we've keeping our eye on the ball with those biggies. That, and I also want to say, well, I'm sorry, I'm just going to take some time here. My career has been in public policy and public administration. So I've come up through the ranks in public organizations like cities and counties and nonprofits. I've come up through the ranks from entry-level service delivery to mid-management, to executive management, to elected positions in these systems. So I do have that lens in which I look at the systemic approach that the administration is pursuing, and how you're advocating for, of all priorities at this point in time, arguably the one that edges out forward just in front is the leverage point of an associate principal for tiered student supports, because we have so many pieces in motion and not enough coherence, not enough focus, not enough, quite frankly, site level authority that someone can focus with to laser focus and supercharge. I can't find the right words right now, but like spark plugs to actually, tilt it forward. It's an intuition. Others are not agreeing. My intuition is that has a lot of validity, what the administration is seeking to accomplish. And at the same time, I just go, gosh, as a policymaker, I wish that there had been more opportunity to engage in second level, third level, fourth level conversations, not just inputs, people giving input at hearings. And this came onto my radar screen about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I've had trouble absorbing all the information, and everything that has been generated. And I wish that there was more time. We may still end up in exactly the same place, but I'm moving forward with some discomfort, wishing that there had been more time for deeper level conversations. And I'll close by saying that, by asking this question that if the board were to consider any modification in this plan, would it have to be given as direction tonight? Otherwise, there is no opportunity on June 22? Because an LCAP process requires hearings and whatever changes are made and what have you. Is it accurate to say that tonight, whatever direction is given by the board, presumably would be incorporated into what's brought forward June 22, without which it's simply voting up or down on June 22 as presented?
Yeah, so the process is to collect additional input, feedback today in the public hearing, whether that be feedback and input from Board of Trustees, anything brought forth by public comment, and consider that for any changes that could potentially then be brought back for the June 22nd plan.
So even board direction would be subject to consideration by the administration?
Of course.
Oh, it's not a direction.
For consideration, yes.
Oh, okay.
We will continue to listen to you all tonight
Yeah.
in consideration of what
Okay,
we bring to you.
so I'm going to throw out something that is not well developed in my mind. That's why I was pursuing the question about that. Part of me wants to hedge my bet as one member of the board to say, well, okay, let's authorize this fourth administrator, but sunset it in 5 years and it needs to come back and be reauthorized. We'll have a clear record at that point of what has been generated by it. And especially because there are legitimately competing perspectives on it, and that's not well developed in my thinking. So would that need to come out of tonight in order for it to be even on the table, June 22? I'm not even advocating for what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm just asking. a
Point of
question.
clarification, you're asking to insert a timeline for the item within the LCAP? Because the LCAP,
The associate principal for tiered student supports, a timeline where it needs to come back in 5 years. for
so the
authorization.
LCAP has to come back every year. And so you'd have an opportunity every year to reevaluate. That's the whole process and part of the LCAP. So items may be removed as you have seen some of them throughout the lifespan of the LCAP have been. Allocations, resources have been reallocated. So 23-24 marks the last year of this particular cycle. California Department of Education, every 3 years, they tend to either bring some changes, whether they change the template, they may even alter the process. One of the things that in a recent informational meeting with the county to review the LCAP process that was mentioned was that there's already considerations from the California Department of Education for this next 3-year LCAP cycle, that there's going to be some changes, which include an inability to carry over any action items without rationalization of if they didn't meet the outcomes, rationalization as to why not. And so they're already considering what that as a change. The process itself has not been approved yet by State Board of Education, but I anticipate that there's going to be some changes, some additions, some shifts to this next LCAP cycle. But even within the scope of what we're talking about today, this plan is for 23-24. And so I have to come back to the board for the plan for 24-25. And so it's built in already for that.
That's helpful, and I add to my public comment on that I'm very persuaded that our administrators, our school site administrators are way understaffed. And I don't think even people who disagree with it disagree with that. So, thank you.
Can I,
Clear though, it is that we won't write something into the LCAP about a 3 or a 5. That's just the nature of board member Doe's HR approach. Like that would probably discourage some applicants, but as we know,
That's
we've
why I
got
said 5 years.
over 100, positions, and we've got a lot of action items, and this is one of them.
yeah, I was going to say something to what he said, and now I forgot what you just said.
Comes with.
What did you just say? Was it?
Glenn?
No, Manuel.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
What did I just say?
Yeah.
Oh, I said that, I've become persuaded that our school site
Oh,
administrative
yes.
teams are way understaffed.
Yes.
And that even people who
yes,
don't
yes, yes.
support a fourth one will acknowledge that.
Thank you. Yes. But my comment, I don't deny that. But I also think that this LCAP that's not the premise of this recommendation. The premise is that we're creating a new accountability for an associate principal. That's an entirely new domain of work focus, work that hasn't been done, that's not being done. So this is not like, oh, they're overworked, so we're getting them help. Well, a lot of people can make that argument. For me, this is all about eliminate, right? This is a whole new accountability that we have not yet added. This is not about work reduction. This is about work addition. We're adding a whole, am I right? Okay.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
I sent out some notes, you'll see them, and I do articulate exactly what you're saying, that this is not about reducing workload, it's about increasing capacity to do something more, focused, and nevertheless, to acknowledge that we have way overworked school site teams is part of some people understanding why those 3 cannot do systemically what we're calling for in this plan.
Because we're asking for way more.
Way more.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. We agree.
Okay, all right. You have your finger on I want to close this out, but I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to
I like the opportunity to respond to the comments, on questions, something that our superintendent have said earlier. And as well as my colleague Cortese. Start with the first and obvious. Trustee Cortese have said that, you want to use in MIG training, master governance training, you said, well, you want to use 2-day money for today, insurance. But there's the second part of that since I recently took that same class that you have taken. And the second part is you don't use one-time money for recurring expenses. The reality is, once you hire an admin or employees, that is not a one-time expenses. That is a recurring expenses. Now, the LCAP to this year is 20 million plus the 11 that you add to 31. Am I correct?
Yes, projected allocation 25 million, usage 31 as required for improved services.
So could you say that again? I missed the first sentence.
About 25 million is what's projected based on our unduplicated count. And then we have a carryover, which takes us to the 31 million, which is presented as part of the LCAP for 23-24.
Thank you for the clarifications. Essentially, those two, we have to balance those two. So when we're talking about, and this is one of the things that I think our superintendent will talk about, the different requirements. One they have not been articulated is a dramatic change that we'll have to the organizations. Our site admin right now is, my math is correct, is about 35. Am I correct? One principal, 2 AP, plus the 2 dean at Indy and Evergreen, 35. This plan would add an 11 additional. Am I correct? Based on my math, right? So essentially a 25% increase or roughly a 25% increase in the site admin. Roughly 22.5, 23%, give or take a few decimal point. Because of that dramatic change, do you think that might have additional impact in our budgets in future years?
Every expenditure in this plan will impact future budgeting, our future budgets, absolutely.
Absolutely, specifically for the site admin. So in this particular case, absolutely.
Why specifically for the admin?
No. I'm just referring to the change in terms of positional control, the number of admin. It's essentially 20-something% change increase in the site admin.
But by that logic, we're adding 11 campus monitors, which essentially increases by 100%, right?
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
Then by that same logic, we're also adding 11 more campus monitors, which is a doubling of that current staffing.
Or health clerk,
And that and health
essentially.
clerks, and that
Right.
those expenses will then also impact future. Every expense will impact future.
Do you think, based on that analysis that you provided, because we have campus monitors because we add a campus monitor is the same as the $2.45 million that we have for the site admin, do you think the cost for the campus monitor that you just described is the same cost?
No, I don't think that's what we're arguing, but
Yeah.
we're just saying that.
I'm making a rhetorical response to that, because essentially when you make a dramatic increase, 2.45 millions, and that's a 22, you don't think that would trigger additional expenses during negotiation with our bargaining units?
Okay, great. Are there any other comments from my colleagues? No? Okay,
I'm so sorry to add one more comment.
okay, go ahead. And I'd like to,
Okay. I know
oh,
you-
wait, hold on. Sorry. Are you done?
No. What I'm trying to point out is two particular things, since you want to wrap it up. One is, our cost is, we direct a dramatic increase in our risk in increasing the number of site admin, because that would change the nature of our negotiation with our bargaining units. The second, I know our superintendent want to comment before I make my second point.
No, I don't want to get in any conversations about negotiations because that's.
Yeah,
not there,
we're
but
treading on legal grounds here. So be careful.
But our entire budget, yes, absolutely. We allocate across our entire budget. We understand that it impacts future budgets and how we have to utilize one-time funds going forward.
Yeah, one last comment. I find myself intrigued by some comments that have been submitted by Thomas Brittendall. And I just want to share them and just make a quick public comment. My understanding of what he's saying is that even this type of added capacity on our school site administrative teams is not likely to, these are my words, not his, not likely to obtain the outcomes that we're seeking because, and then 1, 2, 3, if instead we focused, number one, on added support for special ed, number two, resolving the disruption that is going on with chronic roamers and disruptors, students on our campuses, the safety issue, and number three, balancing our outreach, not just so heavily focused on college, but also on careers, that we would engage many more students, have less non-attenders, less disruptive students. We would achieve a lot of these things and lessen the impact on needed student supports and so on. I'm saying that in order to also publicly say that while I find it an interesting and in many ways valid overall framework, I'm not holding it in my current way of understanding everything. I'm not holding it as either or. What Thomas Brittendall is saying in my mind doesn't dislodge the case being built by the administration for what's needed by our school site teams. And for me, it's both and. I think there's a lot of validity to what he's saying. And we'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, colleagues. There's been quite a bit of engagement, a lot for some, not enough for others, just right for some, everything in between. And I have to say, I've really appreciated all the engagement that we've had. And actually, as I'm speaking, I'm realizing, no, okay, I wanted to make sure Lee had an opportunity. I was like, oh my goodness, Lee hasn't said anything here. But Lee, if you think of something at another point, know that you can share your thoughts. We welcome them. It's been a really, really interesting process to see the different perspectives. And I really want to echo Glenn's comments on, the different perspectives and it being healthy, being in this seat, it's like, wow, it's so interesting. And I've actually learned quite a bit listening to different perspectives. And I really appreciate it because it pushes you to rethink, why am I thinking this? Or have I considered this other standpoint? And so I want to really thank everybody in all the different spaces and all the different modalities that have shared their perspective, whether or not I've been aligned. For me, that doesn't matter. For me, what's important is listening, taking in, considering before we make a final decision. I'm really happy to see that health clerks were added, right? I know that was something that was brought up. Campus monitors were added, right? Everyone's been talking about this additional administrator of MTSS, right? Which, I've had an opportunity to dabble.
Can I just clarify? It's an associate principal of student tiered supports. And the targeted work is towards the students who are surfaced by our Illuminate 6-week data report is one of the key features.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
And if I might add also that we've mentioned 3 positions, but what has been kind of lost in the dialogue is that we are expanding the 9th grade transition program by hiring more teachers to work with our students who need real
Yes.
direct support in their first year of school. And so I know that's been articulated.
Get
Some of our
closer.
That's been articulated at some of our earlier meetings, and I just want to make sure that people know that was heard
Yes.
and that we continue to listen on those other fronts that we've mentioned.
Thank you for that. And I'm just pulling out a few things. I'm not naming everything, folks. I'm not naming everything. I don't think I could do half of a good job as Ms. Marquez in explaining everything. But one thing is very clear is that it is a very strategic, very thoughtful plan, which I appreciate so very much. One of the things that I was starting to say was that, you know, I've had the privilege of dabbling a little bit in administration and being at the school site level as a teacher. And that was prior to the pandemic, and it was hard. And when I think about the times that my students, whether in my classroom or at my school, made gains, is because there was those specific supports. It was very much data driven. It was ongoing. It wasn't like waiting for half a year, waiting to the end of the year to see what's happening. And especially in this moment in time where not just in East Side, but across the state, across the country, across the world, our students are coming back to schools with so much need and behind in so many different ways. It is more important than ever that we engage in this kind of work in a very thoughtful, strategic way. And to my colleague's point, it's not necessarily saying, well, we're going to alleviate the load of a certain group, in this case, the administrators. We are making sure that we are focusing on certain aspect of the work to really support our students in moving forward. And, you know, to the monies piece, listen, I get it. And one of the things that has been top of mind for me is talking to our friends in Sacramento, saying like, the formulas aren't working. We are not getting enough money, because we can sit here around this table trying to figure out where our monies are going to go. But if it's with the same pot, we're going to find ourselves in this situation over and over and over again, unless that number changes for us to be able to seriously entertain something different. And so for me, that is one of the things that I am committed to doing. I'm not even going to say the rest of what I had said. I feel like we said enough, but I will leave with this. Thank you for all the hard work of all the administration here and thoughtfulness and engaging with our community as a whole, whether it was through our planned engagements or unplanned engagements. We rolled with it, and this is an ongoing process, and look forward to the 22nd where we get to move on. So thank you. All right,
Madam
now.
President, I have one quick question. From last board study session, board study session, and I heard that one teacher did ask about the job description of this new position, new AP position. What I heard from one of the conversation right now, that this position is new, but I don't know that what are, relating to the old job description for the other AP, or could you explain that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and thanks for asking that. So you've heard that, if you've been in our system, all of you, enough to know that you've heard there's things called APAs and APEDs. Like, in people's minds, fact, that's the way it is. There's only one job description for those. They share an associate principal job description. This, if we add an additional associate principal for student tiered supports, they would fall under that same job description. However, their duties and what we hold those members accountable for would be different than what's under the APA and APED duties, as is currently arranged. Yeah.
First of all, regardless how I feel or or how we vote on the 22nd, let's bear in mind that I appreciate the work of the team that presented LCAP today, as well as many of our site admin. Let's be very clear. I have the opportunity to watch many of our site admin, principals and AP working incredibly hard. I've seen them at incredibly unusual hours. Some of them with Glenn, it was sort of my colleagues. So what we are trying to determine is this, for my part, for this one board member, is what is the most efficient, effective usage of our money, and put it at the district at the least amount of risk moving forward financially, so that we're always gonna be solvent. And because that's the only way you can protect our student interests, not only this year, but moving forward. There are always going to be an Eastside Union High School district for all our kids. So I do have a couple of concerns that I think Glenn brought up in his comment about the AP. We have the AP for the last few years. We have all these plans. Why didn't the AP, as much as some of them are super hardworking, did the part jobs of managing all the part and components? Because at the end of the day, that's what the ultimate, the final job of the principal as an AP is not to teach a class, is not to go into the classrooms or even on the maintenance of the campus or provide campus safety. They do that, but ultimately that job is to manage. In what role did they manage the process?
Okay, are these your final questions, Mr. Doe?
Oh, I got one more.
Just so we can close it out.
Depending on what people ask, how the
I think
answers
you're the
respond.
last one, so we'll get your questions out so that, but I want to make sure that you don't leave without any questions. I thought you were done, but I'm glad that you're.
I was until the respond by.
Until I responded. Yeah, and so just let me reiterate, and Orkez will handle this question because she stood up, so I'm going to defer to anybody who stands up to talk, right? But I will say this, in listening and hearing and reading the emails and hearing the public comment and reading for how some people this is, speaks to the core of their own work. I want to reiterate that we're listening and we're understanding that. So around the special ed, the safety, the project-based and the CTE pathways, that is not, those conversations do not have to be over. I also recognize that this puts the five of you in a difficult position, which is why we're happy to answer the questions honestly, frankly, because ultimately we get that tension. We get that tension between today's monies and being around 3 years from now, right?
But
We
that's
get
why they pay us the big bucks, Mr.
and this
Superintendent.
this also, we listen to make sure that we hear your concerns as well. We might not be able to meet each of your individual concerns comprehensively, but our aim is to give you a plan that we say, and with our listening and what we've heard and what we'll continue to listen, this is our suggestion for 23-24's LCAP.
Process. Could you explain to us what happened to the Jacks and this email that we just received in terms of process, so we can have a better understanding of what happened?
I don't know what you're looking at, but if it's, yeah, I'm not sure.
That might be something that you can engage with offline. This is specifically around LCAP and how we got to the LCAP process, not necessarily any personal engagements that are not part of the official LCAP process.
This is the LCAP email, but it's for the process, but I don't have to, you can feel free to explain to me or on the channel 22nd after you have a chance to review it.
I think if we just do a personal follow-up, then that
Sure.
should be enough. So if you two can.
Yeah,
take that
if you
off.
have a question about my response to whoever, you can ask me.
No, I think this is in response to my colleague Herrera earlier about whether the process could be better. And so I just asked that because that was given to us by
Yeah.
by our bargaining unit and on behalf of ESTA. So
Right.
so it's not a personal one, but rather an organizational one.
Yeah, so we could continue that conversation offline because that's not part of this.
Yeah, and actually I do want to respond to the question because I actually don't want to leave that because I don't want to fail my administrators in being able to very clearly state their role. They're not managers. They have to be because of the nature of the work. But when we got our administrative credential, we have to adhere to the California standards for educational leaders. And I'll just read one standard for you, sir. And that's a school administrator is an educational leader who promotes the success of all students by facilitating the development, articulation, implementation, and stewardship of a vision of learning that is shared and supported by the school community. That's not managerial work. That's instructional leadership work.
Thank you. Okay, all right. So that was.
Respond to that on the 22nd. I'd love to do it today, but I think we all have enough to.
All right, so that was item 9.01, 9.02. Now we have another hearing, 9.03. All right. See if I get this right. Haven't done very many hearings here. So we will now hold a public hearing which is scheduled at approximately, I'm going to say 8:33 p.m. regarding the proposed budget adoption for 2023-24. And so Ms. Hintun is already on. Are you ready to do the presentation or? So I'm doing a hybrid. So I'm opening up the public hearing, and within the public hearing, I'm gonna ask that you do the presentation so that then we can take comments. So if you are ready, but doesn't he manage the, Mr. Vanderzee?
I'll be right there. Yeah.
I guess we're taking like a 5-second break here. Thank you for your patience, Ms. Hentry. All right. Yes. So this is a mesh of a combination of 9.03, 9.04. May go ahead.
Good evening, President Chavez and Superintendent Vanderzee, members of the board. Thank you so much for your time this evening to hear the preliminary budget. I'm going to start. We're ready. Okay, great. You've heard this, or you can hear me okay? Okay. I always like to start out with the vision and mission. And as we've heard this evening, the Eastside Union High School District ensures each scholar is prepared for college and career and does so in safe, dynamic, and relevant learning environment to inspire critical thinking, problem solving, and innovation. We also have a commitment to equitable communities and is as an essential part of all students welcomed where they are with strengths and opportunities for growth. We respond to social, emotional, and academic needs for every scholar. And you're hearing this theme throughout. I think it's really important as every aspect or discipline within the organization that we carry those items throughout. Okay, so wow, budget cycle. It went fast. We are already marching into the next year. So fast approaching is our next budget cycle going into 23-24. And so the preliminary budget you will get this evening. And so as we go from our current fiscal year of 22-23, now we're going into our next fiscal year and establishing a budget that really supports and aligns with our LCAP. Okay, so preliminary budget this evening, again, it provides a proposed budget for 23-24. And again, as I indicated, supports the preliminary LCAP and all of its goals. We will talk a little bit about the 23-24, the May revise from the governor, and an update and review our multi-year projection as it relates to 23-24. Okay, so we're going to start out with our state update. And so there were three themes that came from the governor's May revise. The first of which was to protect existing investments and at the same time trying to balance an anticipated economic downturn and uncertainties. But secondly, that education was considered an investment to protect. And thirdly, if there are needs in the future or within the 23-24 fiscal year, that any additional reductions that are needed, that would be acted upon by the administration, state administration, and they could use a myriad of tools to do so. We've seen some of those things in the past. I'll just mention them: deferrals. We now have the rainy day fund, which we didn't have the last time that we went through a recession. And so there are many things that state level could potentially use, but that was identified in the May revise by the governor. So just to look a little bit at, again, looking at January, when the governor's January budget came out, and what changed as we marched into May. And so that we see that the LCFF funding, there is an increase, but we noticed that there was about $1 billion decrease between January and May. And then in our Prop 98 minimum guarantee, every year they go through this process where they go back 3 years distributing some of those funds as they look at the guarantee, the minimum guarantee going into the budget year. And that's when I talk about the budget year, I'm talking about 23-24. We also see that the statutory COLA going into 23-24 went up from January to May, from 8.13 to 8.22. We'll talk about how he got there in just a moment. We do see that some of the arts, music, and instructional materials, the discretionary block grant, it did drop between January and May. There was already a reduction on the table in January, and it increased in May, and that decrease, the reduction increased from 1.2 to a 1.8 billion. Also, looking at the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, there was no reduction in January, but as we reached May, it did increase so that there's a reduction of 2.5. Both of those funding sources are in fact one time. And again, this is just to give you, this is just the facts and what's coming out between for 23-24. So I just mentioned the 8.22. The equity multiplier, I think that is still yet to be understood in terms of what districts would actually meet what is considered highest needs. And so that is something that at this point in time, because we do have some of our demographics are changing, as you'll see in just a moment, we don't receive all of the LCFF funding. And so that is something that equity multiplier is still in question. And then the categorical programs. Some of the categorical programs are in fact receiving that same 8.22% COLA. So you'll see up there in blue, again, the 2.8% or 2.8 billion that is that came out, that's one-time funding. That is being relied upon so that the 8.22 COLA can be met. Again, going from 8.13 in January to 8.22 in May. Okay, I tried to, there's a lot of numbers on this page. And so I tried to kind of focus us, where are we? Where is Eastside Union? So we're on the far right-hand column. There's with a box. And so this is showing our base grant, our LCFF base grant, what the COLA looks like. So applying the 8.22. We also receive a grade span adjustment for 9th grade, the 312. And then we also have supplemental. So this is the area that shows specifically that we're not receiving all of the LCFF funding. So you can see that we do receive the supplemental grant, the 20%, but what we do not meet eligibility for is the concentration grant, because our UPP, our unduplicated pupil per pupil, does not meet that 55% threshold, which would provide us with an additional 65%.
What is ours?
It's so in the budget year, it's projected at little over 50%. And I do want to say, I'm going to give Ms. Kasberger, Julie from Food Services. She worked really hard this year, along with the assessment group, to bump that up in the current year. So that's bringing us up in our projected year. So, okay. So this is showing, if you were to add all those numbers up, this is showing $13,569 per ADA. Does not include that additional $8,000. You'll see in a moment that we're actually at $14,032. That differential of $463 has to do with an add-on that's not listed in this calculation for transportation and TIG, which was an old program, categorical program, targeted instructional improvement block grant. That funding was last received as a restricted program back in 11-12. So this was part of that conversion to the LCFF. Okay, another page, lots of numbers. Again, try to identify what we really are using off of this page. And it is, these are the financial projections that we use. So we're looking at our CPI, our STRS and PERS, and our lottery. And so this is looking for the 3 years, the budget year and 2 out years. And that is our requirement. And so that's what we're looking at here. These are the factors that we're using to determine our multi-year projection. So this again shows the changes in COLA projections. This is from the Department of Finance. And it shows starts out with 22-23. And we can see there was no change between January and May. The dark blue is January, the green is May. But as we move into 23-24, we can see that there is that slight change that we just talked about. And then we look into those projection years, and you can see we're at an 8% COLA in 23-24, our budget year. But as we move into our 24-25 and 25-26 year, it goes down to a little over 3%. And you can see there was a little bit of a change between January and May for 24-25, but 25-26 remained constant. Okay, so this was the arts, music, and instructional block grant, the discretionary block grant. This was something that we did receive some of the funding in 22-23. And then there was a reduction. So initially we were to receive 13.3 million. We lost 6.6 million as a reduction, leaving us with 6.7. I do want to indicate that we did include allocations for the sites, and that reduction is not going to impact the sites. It was the operational side of this grant that is being impacted by that. So that's being left at the DO level, basically, the general fund. Okay, so then we have our Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. And this is also funding that would be coming to us in the 23-24 year at 23.2 million. And the current reduction of about 32% is 7.4% for us. I'm sorry, 7.4 million for us. And that's about that 32%. So that leaves us with about 15.8 million. And this funding is one-time funding available through the 2027-28 fiscal
Repeat that
year.
number again, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you remember the numbers that was impact to us?
What we're actually getting?
Yes.
15.8.
What do we expect it? I think I should say.
I'm sorry.
What was the number that we're hoping before we get?
So initially it was 23.2, I believe. Let me look back just to make sure. Yeah, it was 23.2 was the initial. And what we're now is 15.8. So declining enrollment. Declining enrollment is something that is a statewide issue. So this demonstrates for 12 of the counties throughout the state that are anticipating to lose 10,000 or more students in enrollment between the 2022-23 and the 2031-32 fiscal year. And as we look at Santa Clara, we see Santa Clara is anticipated to lose 14%, but the statewide decline average is 8.27. So we can see not just East Side is anticipating decline, it's the entire county and the entire state. Okay, so let's move now into the preliminary budget for 23-24. We're starting off with our enrollment in ADA. I hope you're going to be able to see this. This is lots of lines on this chart. So the purple lot, I'm sorry. Yeah, that is, Not seeing that. Great. Okay. So the purple line is our funded line. So that's that top line, superintendent, yeah. And then the actual, I just want to, is the red down at the bottom. So if we look at the differential, if we didn't have, so this is allowing us a 3-year average. So as we go into the 23-24 year, it actually is providing us kind of, I like to call it the safety net. And so with that safety net, we are going to be funded at an ADA of 20,817. The differential between what we're getting as a 3-year average versus where we would have been funded on current year versus prior year, because we are declining, there's a differential of about 1,300. So that's approximately 18 million. Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, it's a hard on the eyes. Okay, so then the next several slides, this is specific to what we are utilizing for our factors, our budget assumptions. And so you're seeing the 22-23 second interim estimated actuals, and that last column is what we're using for 23-24. So these are all the normal things that we start out with. Number one, what's our projection for enrollment? What's our projection for ADA? Because that's going to determine our staffing as well as the funding that's coming into us. I'm going to point out one item. If you look down under, there's based SSC dartboard where we've got the statutory COLA, some augmentation and effective change in LCFF. Please note on that last column in 23-24 that augmentation does go away in 23-24. The augmentation was provided in 22-23 as part of the budget in 22-23. That is going away. It was on the base, the LCFF base, but it goes away. So that, and this is where you will see that the entitlement per ADA, that 14,032, that was the number that I mentioned in an earlier slide. Next slide. This next slide is demonstrating what our stepping column is for each of our certificated classify and management, and what those percentage increases have been. Indicating what our salary increases. This is something that's already been negotiated going into our 23-24 year. And then we also see that we have had reductions in teacher FTE of 16.4. Okay, the last slide that we have is looking at all of our statutory benefits, which includes STRS, PERS, Medicare, workers' comp. Any of those changes we are identifying here. There was one I wanted to show you. What was it? Oh, one of the items that we see has gone away for 23-24. We do not have a board election, so that board election cost has been zeroed out. Also, please note that we did get a reduction in our property liability insurance. That increase went down to a 2%, and we've seen much larger increases in most recent years. So that's gone down to 2%. Okay, here we are. So this is looking at the 23-24 year. We're coming into a projection on July 1st, 2023 of 94 million. We're showing our revenues coming in at 357 million. With total expenditures of 385 million, with approximately a $28 million decrease to our funding balance. So that gets us to the 66 million. So now let's look at our multi-year projection. Okay. So we're showing the estimated actuals for 22-23. You can see how we're anticipating to end the year with 94 million. We bring that into our 23-24 year. So you can see those are the same numbers that you just saw with a projected ending balance of 66 million for 23-24. Now, as we go into our 2 out years, our statutory requirements of 24-25 and 25-26, we can see that we are continuing with our deficit spending, and you'll see in the note starting in 24-25 that there is built into those expenditures a $2.5 million reduction. And this would require a fiscal solvency, a resolution by the board in order for that to be solidified as part of the budget. And then moving into that 3rd year, which is the 25-26 year, we are now going into the 3rd year with a $23 million beginning balance and ending with 18 million. And that particular year is showing a 43 million. I think it's going to come in more like 41 million. But again, in order for that to be solidified in that expenditure, we would need that resolution. And I will tell you, the county will be expecting that. So next steps is our adoption on June 22nd, both for the LCAP as well as the budget. And again, the budget is supporting that LCAP plan that has been established. Then we start out with July 1st, with the start of the year, monitoring any changes from the state and reflecting those in the budget as necessary. And then looking locally within the district for any changes that may be necessary throughout the fiscal year. And then we have the unaudited actuals in September.
Thank you for that. You went through that pretty quickly. Okay, so this is technically, where is my document? Technically the hearing. So I believe this is where we call for any comments, any speakers at this time. I don't have any like actual papers for this. There's no, nothing.
There's no online public comment.
Great. Okay.
I'm sorry. Can I take one moment?
Oh, of
I
course.
just want to say thank you so much to Miss Sylvia Palaio. She is my right and my left hand. And also Anlin Wang is not with us this evening, but she worked right along with us, and they're a great team. I love them. So thank them.
Thank you for that.
I have a question, please.
Yeah. Well, actually, hold on. I think I need to close out with the public comment before we go into our, sorry, 'cause this is like a combination. It's weird. Thank you for bearing with me. All right, so I'm calling for public comment a second time. I think I'm supposed to do the gavel, but regardless, it's fun. Hearing none, seeing none. All right, calling for public speakers for a 3rd time. All right, public testimony on this matter is now closed. All right, now we can go into our comments. Go ahead, Trustee Lay.
All right. Thank you for your presentation. I know it's a lot of number that we have to crunch, right? But it's really, an overview for the budget. My question to you is, Dr. Hunton, the last 2 slides for the 24-25 year 2 and year 3, that's what the number that really show me some concerns. When you mentioned that the balance includes fiscal stabilization for the 2025 year 2, commitment 2.5 million and 3% statutory reserve, what is the number that we have to put as the 3% reserve? When you show 23.9 there, that means we are in the hole. Am I correct?
In that 3rd year out, that 18 million is the requirement.
18.5.
Yeah, that is the requirement. That includes the legally restricted programs,
Okay.
as well as the economic uncertainty.
So a year two, which is 2024, 2025, we still okay in terms of we still have the statutory reserve 3%.
Yeah, so in order for us to meet that statutory reserve, the economic uncertainty, that's where it's showing the 2.5 million. That's to meet that requirement.
That
That's what would
requires-
be needed for reduction.
Okay, so the third year, 2025, 2026, we show that we have 18.5 million ending fund balance.
Mhm.
That means we are deeper in our reserve.
Yes,
And how much-
you are right at your minimum with the 18.
Oh, that's the minimum we
Mhm.
have to keep it, right?
Yes.
But if the number will change it, or if with the revenue, we might not receive as much as what we anticipate, this number gonna be in whole, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So at this time that we look good in 2023, 24,
Mhm.
24, 25, but it's concerned in 25, 26. Am I
Yes.
correct? Okay, that's all I want to clarify. Thank you.
For that. Can you get close to the microphone?
I just want to advise my colleagues that I have a dilemma with getting back to my mom because of someone needing to leave. So I'm going to stick around more, but at some point I'm just going to have to leave.
Okay.
And
Okay,
respect.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. do- Okay, yeah, I mean, I serve at the pleasure of my colleagues. I mean, I
All right.
want to make sure everyone has a voice here. Any other comments or questions?
Questions.
Yeah.
What are the assumptions that you go into this analysis? I know you speak really fast, so I make it, what assumption did you go into the analysis for the year 2 and year 3 in terms of the number that you go in? Is that including the expected decline in enrollments? Is that included? Yeah, that
Yes.
already been included.
Yeah, so the assumptions, if you look on those
Yeah.
3 slides, those are the assumptions that were used. And you will see that that we're showing that the decline has been built in. Yes.
Right. Because this meeting is public, sometimes I ask rhetorical questions.
no,
so
no, no,
assume that
that's
we-
okay.
That we
That's
all have
okay.
this on the same page. Did this include any potential raises or COLA adjustment or salary negotiation that we may potentially go in, or it does not?
There, that's in there as well. It might be in the executive summary, but yeah, we have not included any potential increases.
And of course, you do not include the potential of the state budget declining or increasing the state budget. There's no way you can predict that. I'm establishing the obvious.
Yep.
if you-
Yeah, we're utilizing the May revise is what we're utilizing.
Right.
And any additional requirements from our county, and our county is mirroring what's in May revise.
Right. So on the year 2, in order to stabilize, what do we have to do in order to get that number to meet that 23.9 million? What reductions do we have to do?
So there needs to be a resolution that will come to you on June 22nd, and it will include that number that I have in there, which is a 2.5.
2.5 million reductions.
Right, for the 24-25 year.
And
I believe that, and I wasn't here, so I believe there was one last June. So it'll be the same thing.
right.
And
Right.
Board Member Doe, while it's here presented as a reduction, it would be our intent to look for grant funding opportunities for us to be able to get outside dollars to take over some of that program.
I would expect nothing less from the team. I'm just simply want to explain for the basic, the very most basic because we are having a public this hearing. And on year 3, we would need to reduce $43 million, and we would take a similar vote in subsequent year.
Right, that would be the same for 25-26. I will go back to what Superintendent Vanderzee mentioned. This is the start of our year, but we will continue to work to minimize any impact from a financial standpoint.
Does the 2.5 or the 43 million might require some sort of reduction in force or other expense reductions?
So we're just seeing a reduction in expenditures at this time because we don't know what we might be able to look at next year in 24-25 that might benefit the 25-26 year. So we're not saying what that might be. It might be a revenue enhancement or it might be reductions in expenditures, but we don't know what that looks like at this point.
Understood.
But Board Member Doe, I think historically, this board knows and has taken action that in looking at that, we've always, there has been assumption.
I
that-
remember.
That might very much.
I also look at the last 18 years of the district, so I'm familiar with what happened in year 3 of our hope and dreams and we pray.
Right.
the
On.
same
We
time.
just want to make sure the public remembers that as well. Awesome.
Great. Any other comments? Yes, trustee Lang.
I have two quick questions. On the page that you have 2023-24 preliminary budget assumptions and the decreased teachers FTE due to enrollment change, can you clarify that for me?
Okay, so which slide is it on? It's on the assumptions. Okay. Oh, okay. So it's for 24-25
Yes.
or 20, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
23-24.
23-24,
Right. So there was a reduction of 16.4
correct.
that's built into the budget.
So we already have decreased the teacher
Yes.
FTE, we already have it.
Yes, it's already been built into the preliminary
So
budget.
that mean that some teacher, some class, we're not gonna, don't have enough enrollment.
Oh,
then-
no. No,
No.
no, that's not, no, what we are, I don't know if,
I'll go ahead and speak to that since
Yes,
for
oh,
the
thank you.
interest of time.
Yep.
So what the HR and business does every spring is to meet with each of the school teams and look at their forecasted enrollment. And so what their FTE or full-time equivalent, how much teaching staff in different credential areas they need. When there is a reduction in students, then obviously there is a need for fewer courses, right? And so across our district, then that is the amount of FTE or full-time teachers that was reduced across the system as the whole. Most of that we absorb through retirements, resignations, but it's not an actual laying off of personnel.
Okay, that's
Right.
very important. Okay, one last question.
Mm-hmm.
So does LCAP budget already including in this budget that you present, or is a separate?
no, it's
Yes.
incorporated into
incorporated
this.
here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's what I want to know. Thank you.
Just on that point, that depend on what the some of the unknowns are, which obviously there's no way any CBO can predict the unknown. So whether there will be a reductions or not a reductions depend on the one-time money and whatever negotiations that we might incur with our bargaining unit. So there's a lot of unknown. That's why the third year have not always been the most reliable. All we can know is what we know now based on the assumption that we know now. And that's all, Dr. Hun Chun can incorporate into the analysis.
Even the second year for that matter, we've seen some of the changes that the governor has made, even from just May revised to now. And I do have a question. I forget the term you used with this graph, the lines, the net.
The 3-year
safety
average?
net?
Oh,
Yeah, what?
the 1,300 that I talked about?
yeah,
The
this-
differential, I said differential.
So, yeah, so if we were based on like the actual ADA, we wouldn't be receiving the money that we are receiving right now. We have. the
Right, we would
safety-
not be using a projection of 20,817. We would be using a projection of actually 19,505 because that is a prior year and it's higher.
So my question is that going to continue being a thing? Is the orientation of like that safety net, that balance, that average, whatever you want to call it moving forward? Or do you see that changing?
So it is anticipated to sunset, to go away unless there are changes in the legislature.
Got it. When is that expected to sunset?
I think we've got one more, I think we go down, actually, I think next year, right? I think, yeah, next year, yep.
We got some advocacy to do.
Yeah.
All right, or continue doing for that
go.
matter. Okay, great. That's super helpful. One thing I just want to say to my colleagues, this book, it's really helpful. The executive summary, super detailed, but yet simple to read and fast to read. So I highly recommend, not just for my colleagues, but for the public, it's part of the documents that are attached to the agenda. Please read it because there's a lot of information there that you can't necessarily get from here. It's
Right.
more of a narrative.
Agreed.
So thank you for adding that narrative. Okay. anything else on this topic before we move on? I want to hold that balance of saying what we have to say, but also it's 9 o'clock. Thank you. We're good? Great. Ms. Huntoon and team, thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Okay, so that is 9.03, 9.04. I'm good to move on, yeah? All right, good. I personally don't. Section 10, public comment. So members of the public may address the board at this time. Do we have any public comment? No, none.
There is no online public comment.
Great. All right, so now we are on section 11. Nothing on section 11. Section 12.01. I did have, well, you go ahead. You need to present. We need to know what we're talking about, right? It's a good starting point. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Teresa Marquez, Associate Superintendent at Services. So for this particular item, it's the first reading being brought forth of board policy 5119, and then deletion of 2 of the policies that are no longer in existence through Gamut. These are policies that are also a part of our agreement with the Office for Civil Rights. The language that is included in the changes for the board policy 5119 are in alignment with the CSBA Gamut. And then there is some language that has been proposed by the Office for Civil Rights. I do want to point out that the deletion of 5119.1 and 5119.2, the material and the content from there is actually been shifted to, which is the next item, BP 6184, just as a reference. But this is just a first reading.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any in-person public speaker requests? I mean, I have a request, but I don't see this person here anymore. So they're not here.
I do not.
Nothing online.
Nothing online.
Great. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
You're getting to us?
I'm getting to you.
Okay. Oh, wait, I thought we were moving
We
on.
have an eager audience sitting around, which I appreciate. Engagement. Here we go. All right, Cortese, the floor is yours.
Wait, I hope I'm not confused. Well, the odds are pretty good, but so there's two that were. Yes, okay. This is the one I wanted to comment on. Board policy 5119.
Yes.
I would like to ask that we remove the word continuing in this policy. There's several times where they talk about a student poses a continuing danger. And for me, the concern is dragging the student's past into their future. So could we just eliminate that word and just say danger? Like we should not, if a student is a danger, that's a concern, right? We need to deal with that, find an appropriate placement. But to say continuing danger, to me, there's some bias in there that I don't know that's healthy for our students. So that's just my request.
Thank you. Heather?
I also want to bring this one out. When we talk about criteria to involuntarily transfer a student, shall reflect the district overall goal and policies, but in use exclusionary discipline, including involuntary transfer only as last resort, blah, 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 blah. I was wondering, like, if like a student was involved with any weapon or anything in a danger.
Are you referring to 12.01 or 12.02, Trustee Lay?
101.
Is
Yeah,
it- is it-
12.01. So when my question is when we talk about involuntary transfer, But if the student was transferred to, a small high school that we have, and after the whole process of the student, and we probably bring the student back to the high school, the home school, do we have to access that student to see maybe that the student probably like to stay at the the other high school because it's a smaller set, or in also is they probably would have better pay attention from the teacher? Then if we bring them back to the homeschool, well, we're gonna check back the behavior has been changed, or we're gonna create another chaos, for other students and other staff or other teachers. So I was kind of concerned about it, and I'm gonna write it, to see anything that we can review it and take a look of the board policy to see when we transfer the student back to their home school. All right, we're gonna have to have an access and really look into the behavior of the student, and how would we want to review to see if the student probably prefer to stay on the transfer school rather than homeschool.
So I think you're asking about a different process separate from this. Ms. Marquez, does
Yeah,
that?
and I think just for my purposes, can you tell me which board policy you're currently looking at, trustee Lay?
I have here that because I'm looking to on the bill, EC section 48430, 4832, 432.3. And we're talking about the ad code.
I don't,
Can you tell me which of the board, are you looking at board policy 5119, which is currently the item we're discussing? Or are you looking at the next item, which is board policy 6184?
I probably will review and I wrote it down.
It's
but-
okay. I mean, I could answer
to make-
generally. I mean, it's all
Sure.
connected. That's why I'm bringing
So
them
maybe I'm
both.
gonna send to you later.
Yeah, that's fine. Just in general, there is a process as part of the administrative reg. There is already a process where we talk about the reentry and what works for the kid. That's part of the counseling that the student receives in terms of determining what's the best placement for that particular student. So that there's already a process built in for that.
All right, but not just we involuntarily transfer them back to their home school without any assessment.
No, but they do have a right, once they've met the terms of the involuntary transfer, to return to their home school. But there's obviously always an engagement with the student, with the family about what's in the best interest of the student.
And okay, so we're gonna have to look into their behavior and what their commitment.
Well, we look at
towards-
the academics, we look at the level of success, we look at all those components to determine what's the best placement for the student.
Okay, I will send some of my notes later on.
Please, thank
yeah,
you.
and this is a first reading.
Yes.
So, well, it'll come back. Go ahead. Okay, great. Anything else on 12.01 or policy 5119? Nope. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Now we are on to 12.02.
Thank you. Once again, Teresa Marquez, Associate Superintendent of Educational Service, very similar to the previous item. This is one of the board policies that is being reviewed by our agreement with the Office for Civil Rights. The language that is contained within this is aligned with CSBA. And it essentially takes a lot of the elements that were contained in 5119.1 and 5119.2 and includes it in the board policy as well as the AR.
Thank you. Do we have there's no in-person public speaker request, any online public comment?
There is online public comment.
Okay.
Online public comment by staff member Thomas Brittendahl. Since I will email you all a more detailed breakdown of my objections, right now I will simply ask all of you to seriously consider the effects these policy changes would have. The policy of involuntary transfer is a matter for the board to consider in tandem with the California Education Code, a code that this policy misuses by ascribing language and meaning to education code that does not exist. The recommendations by CSBA and OCR are overstepping and asking you to change a valuable and needed tool by making it inoperable. I look forward to speaking with you all as soon as possible. That is the end of online public comment.
Thank you. Do we have anyone raising their virtual hand in Zoom speak to request?
No, but as we consider the, the phrasing of continuing change, I want to make sure that we know that there is ed code that we'll have to consider in that determination, and we'll let you know the interaction of that when we come back for the second reading.
Thank you for that.
Because we're not allowed to create policy that would violate that.
Hmm,
We'll look to see what the case is.
Thank you for that. Any comments from my board colleagues on, or Lee, at any point? Don't wait for me to. Okay, great. Any comments? Any other comments? No? Great. Thank you, Ms. Marquez. So again, this is first reading, no action, other than just receive it. All right, so we are on section 13, discussion to action to approve contracts for professional services over 25,000. Okay. Okay. Moved by Lay, seconded by Doe. Lee, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the vote passes unanimously, but I do want to acknowledge that my board colleague Herrera is not here in this specifically, or the ones moving forward for the rest of the night. Okay, now let's go to section 14. There's nothing here. Section 15.01, approved bond capital project contracts over 50,000. Are there is there any online comment, any virtual hands? Want to make sure that.
No.
Okay, great. Is there a motion? Moved by Cortese, seconded by Doe. Lee, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? The vote passes unanimously with the, well, I don't know if it's considered unanimously. We're not all here, but they get the drift, I guess, right? All right, so now we are going to consent calendar now.
Move to approve the consent calendar?
All right, so moved by Cortese, seconded by Doe. Lee, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. All right, so now we are in section 21. Where are you, section 21? There are no written reports, so there's nothing there. Section 22, future board, meeting agenda items. Trustees, how are we feeling about that?
I would like to request probably beginning of the fiscal year 2023-2024. I'd like to have a report about general staffing with diversity.
Diversity of our staffing. Okay. Great. All right, now moving on to section 23.
Just a quick
Oh,
one.
sorry.
So one of the things I had requested a while back was site equity councils, and I see that's going to be presented in June 2023, which is pretty much now. Will we be able to hear that, or?
Probably not. We're probably gonna have to push that back to the start of the school year.
Okay.
Just the timing just didn't work out.
So I got it. Just so you know, I would love that to be a standing thing. I think we used to have more presentations, interactions from our students. And I think these voices are particularly useful to lift up and to engage directly with our board. So if this is something we could schedule routinely, I don't know when, it takes you a while to get them set up, I know, in the fall, and kind of have them find their way and their bearings. So maybe in the spring, we could just sort of routinely hear from
Yes,
them? Is that
yeah,
okay?
that's perfect. That's a
Okay.
great idea. We actually have a plan for that. And so that's great.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, sorry about that. Section 23, comments. All right, so I'm gonna start with my left, trustee Lay.
Well, I want to say that thank you for all administrator, teachers, staff, and parents. This is a really amazing that I attend 3 graduation at Santa Teresa, Oak Grove, and Andrew Hills. And I have to say that it's really amazing group of student. I'm very honored to attend the graduation. In the graduation, I have one of my grandniece who's the first generation who graduated in a family. So I'm very proud of Eastside Union High School District student. You know, we have, very amazing kids. And also want to acknowledge Lee Henry, for all of her leadership. And I watch student governing board, and I'd have to say this group is really amazed me. And I know that our next board meeting will be the last one for Lee Henry. So we really appreciate her leadership, her contribution. But we're probably gonna have something that to say to Lee Henry the next board meeting. That's all I have. Thank you. Oh, and have a good summer for those people that will have a vacation in June and July. For me, I don't have a vacation, so I have to work.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Thank you. First of all, I want to acknowledge not only Lee contributions today, but also the hard work of our staff. And I want to take the moment to appreciate the fact that we had an opportunity to honor the student from Mesa SJSU. That was absolutely wonderful. Glenn, as you know, I absolutely love these things. I sent you, half a dozen or a dozen email about all the various students that we want to honor and celebrate with them and their family. I hope we would have more opportunity and the time and the space to recognize, to celebrate, because when our students succeed, we succeed, and more importantly, we have the opportunity to honor the contribution and hard work of our students and their family. So I hope we'll be able to do more of that. Thanks.
Cortese.
Well, all of that, the, graduations and job well done, everybody got, I don't want to say survived another year. We thrived another year.
There you go.
I just want to acknowledge my colleagues tonight. I think it's so healthy when people can agree to disagree, even passionately. And I get that where everyone's coming from is the long-term health of the district. And we might have different ways of viewing that or different priorities around that, but I see that that's where we are, where we aligned is the long-term health of the district and what is good for the well-being of our students. So it's been a process that's a little bit more animated than most we have on this board, but I just want you to know I appreciate you very much. Yeah, thank you.
We can all just agree agreeably. There's, when people talk about, diversity, it's not just diversities of the genders or skin color, but diversity of thoughts. Each one of us bring our own experience to the table. Because when we are elected, we elected to represent the community. We bring that voice that we hear and our expertise and our experience as well as our passion to the board. And we will disagree. And that's totally acceptable and reasonable. What's more important is we find a path to move forward, regardless how we may vote on issues A, B, or C. It's important that our students benefit from, and we want to bring those voices that we hear in our community out and bring those with all the passion and all the intellectual reasoning that should come with it. And I respect my colleagues. As I've said many times, I respect my colleagues even when I disagree with them.
This has been a board meeting of like just talking and talking, which is great, you know? I'm making sure you're getting it out of your system, y'all. All right. I echo a lot of what my comments have said, my colleagues have said. Congratulations to our kids. The year is over for them at least. Even for some folks that are not technically in the classroom or, you know, doing specific things at sites, the work continues, I know. And so thank you to all of you in advance. And yeah, I'm gonna age myself here, but I have to say it. I was at the YB graduation with someone over here that I know. And it was so special. I realized, and I didn't say this during my speech, I was like, dang, 20 years ago, I was there walking that stage. It was 20 years ago. And I was just looking around. And then the day after that, I saw one of my classmates post something on Facebook. His son graduated. And I was like, how did I not run into you? But it's just like generation after generation. And that was just like a big reflection of the journey of our community, me being one of the community members, our students coming from our schools, you know, finding their path as professionals, as people growing, and just the cycle of giving back to the community. And so it was just a wonderful moment that I don't ever take for granted. So wanted to share that with all of you. Hey, I'm not there yet, okay? I'm still, I am speaking for myself, still young. All right, on that note, I think that's an invitation to invite our student board member. Lee, do you have any comments?
I don't have any comments.
No comments? Okay. Bandozy, comments on your end?
Yeah, I think I do.
All right.
I want to just thank everybody for a successful year. And for some people said the second year coming back was harder than the first. Others said, no, the first year back was harder, but either way, people brought it. We started the year with the Spartan Eastside Promise. I was really pleased that this group of seniors, over 1,800 were offered admission into San Jose State, which is higher than ever. So that's great. And it looks like about 714 of our students said, yeah, that's going to be my school. Right. And so we'll start the year with the promise again, and we'll continue with the conversations that we heard tonight. I would ask that as an entire system, that as we engage with each other over the next 2 weeks before the 22nd, that we listen to each other for their passion and what we want to bring to the system. As we disagree, to be able to listen of how we can continue to collaborate and work on some of those issues that have been reached out. The LCAP is not the total plan. It is incredibly comprehensive due to the work of the staff, but we do have the ability to engage and improve going forward. And I also just want to thank every level of our administration and every role that's played here. Our people do good work. They do hard work, and they get themselves up every day and ready to meet students where they are and engage with them. And I just want to appreciate every person, if you're in the LCAP or not, it doesn't matter. It took all of us to help these students succeed. It took these students really saying, I'm going to make it. I'm going to do the work. We know we still have some areas of growth in our system, but I think in collaboration and listening to each other, we can continue to do that. Totally confident in that. So I thank you all.
Thank you. All right. Rogelio, are you around?
Yes, I am.
All right, we are now in section 24. You have anything to report out?
Yes, I do. Closed session item 2.03, expulsion of student 22-23-13. Motion by member Doe, second by member Lay. The board unanimously approves a stipulated agreement as to the expulsion of that student. Also, closed session item 2.06, upon a motion by member Cortese and second by member Doe, the board has unanimously ratified the final termination of employment of one certificated teacher following the teacher's withdrawal of his request for hearing. There are no further actions to report.
Thank you. It is now 9:32. This meeting is adjourned.